All right, everybody, a very good morning from the flight deck once again. It's Captain Naps here with you with another edition of A Pilot's Life live on Twitch here. And as you can tell, we are still flying for JetBlue. I don't know how you can tell that from this picture. It's not like it's written in giant letters across the engine nacelle or anything. But that's what we're doing today. We are taking another leg up in the A320. So if you can't tell just from this image alone, it is the IAE engines on the A320 aircraft. And I was actually looking around the aircraft and I was just so impressed with kind of the level of detail, the number of placards that are legibly reproduced on the side of this aircraft is really quite astonishing. And if you zoom in even more, you can just see how detailed these are. Like now I'm starting to get into the level of zoom where they actually start to become a little bit blurry, but nevertheless, that all of the labeling, the placard is here. I can read it. Total oil capacity 29 US quarts. Sea maintenance manual for approved synthetic lubricating. Like it's astonishing when you start to look at the level of detail sometimes that's available on these aircraft. It may not be totally, yeah, I think it's pretty clear on stream as well. It's a little bit, the stream's a little bit lower resolution than my monitor, but it's still, it's quite astonishing when you just see the level of detail in this aircraft. When you look at the wheels, and these wheels look like they've seen service. They're dirty. The tires look a little bit scuffed and worn out. The whole thing looks like it's definitely seen some hard work out there. You can see some wear marks on the tires and everything. Actually, those tires actually look pretty darn good. They don't look all that worn out, but the brakes, the brake area looks a little bit black and dirty, although in reality, I find that the aft side of the brakes looks a lot dirtier than this. It's usually almost completely black. The front half of the brakes usually not so bad, but the back half of the brakes usually completely black if they've been on there for more than a couple days worth of cycles. But anyways, nevertheless, welcome aboard everybody for another edition of A Pilot's Life. So let's hop in the flight deck. Let's add me to the equation here. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the stream. And yeah, today we're taking our A320 out. And what are we doing today? We are going from, you should be able to see this. No, you can't see that you can see. There we go. We are going from San Juan, TJSJ, all the way up to Orlando, KMCO. So it's a fairly long flight here, and I don't know why it won't let me zoom out there, but there's kind of the overview of the flight right there from San Juan up to Orlando. Unfortunately, we got no ATC online. No surprise. It is a Tuesday morning. It's not exactly a busy day in the VATSIM skies, but we'll keep our fingers crossed. And yeah, we'll get ourselves going. I was a little frustrated last week, and those of you that watched my last stream know why. When we were about an hour and a bit from landing, my internet just went offline. Just gone. And did not come back for over 45 minutes. And by the time it came back, I was on the ground in San Juan. So the flight continued while I was offline, and we landed in San Juan. And during the taxi, and I looked up, and my internet was back online. So I even did an engine, not an engine failure, but an in-flight engine shutdown, a single engine approach into San Juan, all offline. I was really, really ticked about the whole thing. I haven't had like a major internet failure like that during a stream in a while. It was very frustrating to say the least, and it really kind of almost what's the word I'm looking for here? It just almost made me so apathetic towards the whole thing. It made me want to give up on the flight altogether, and I didn't. I finished the flight, and I actually got a really good score on it, but it was so frustrating. It was supposed to be like a low visibility approach too, with thunderstorms. Of course, the weather was gone because I didn't have the feed from Microsoft anymore, so nothing. There was nothing exciting about it. There was nothing. It was very frustrating, and part of the reason why it took me over a week to get the video out was just it was a reminder of just how frustrating that whole situation was. It was nothing that was within my control. I mean, I can't control what the internet company does if their network fails, and apparently it failed through the whole neighborhood for that 45 minutes before they got it back online. There's nothing much I could do, but it's nevertheless very frustrating when you're trying to do something like stream and share, and you know. You set aside time at your week to do these things, and the services and systems that you depend upon are not available at that time. Anyways, we're going to hope for some better luck today. We got some beautiful weather today. It looked like yesterday it was going to be a little bit stormy, but it looks like for the most part that's moved off. There's the only place where there's a little bit of storminess is over Florida, kind of west of Florida. There's a chance there could be some storms moving into Orlando by the time we get there. So we've got a target takeoff time, or target off the gate time of 14:20, which is 28 minutes from now. So let's hop in this flight deck. Let's get this whole thing started. And of course that's not correct either. Give me 1 second here. Got to just fix this one thing that is not correct, which is I'm using the wrong track IR settings here. So now that should probably... Always 101 things you kind of need to set up before you get going here in an airplane, before you get going on a stream. So, all right, we've got the A320 here. Let's just go ahead and we've got external power on it. We sat down. We're going to say it's the first flight of the day today. This should be in manual mode until we need it. So let's go ahead and put the batteries on. Let's go ahead and put the IRSs on. All right, and those should begin aligning. I like that they have the align lights now. The on battery light comes on and off. That's all proper. That last revision really fixed a lot of stuff. And then, of course, we've got to hop in the box, and the easier thing is just to do it this way. And it's a little bit more comfortable for me and for you to see it that way. So what we're going to do today here, we're going to go... no, we're not going to go ATSU. We're going to go data... aircraft status. So make sure we've got the database is current. It is current until tomorrow, swapped. And I'm going to put in the performance factor right now because we have to wait a little bit of time for the IRS to align anyway. So ARM and +1 is my performance factor. Clear the ARM code. And we can initialize our flight initially. So today we are JetBlue. What are we? 16? No. What are we today here? Hold on. Got to find it here. 1434. 1434, 16 didn't sound right. 1434, and we are going from San Juan, TJSJ, all the way to KMCO, Orlando, and IRS initialization. And you can check it on the flight plan. You can also check it on the charts here. So if I open up the charts, that'll also show us what we need here. On the top left corner of any airport's 10.9 page, it'll list a lat long of the airport itself. I can eventually get this to come up here. There we go. Top left corner of the 10.9 page, you can look there. 1826.4 north by west, 6600.1 west. So 1826.4 north, 1826.4 north, 6600.1 west. A line on that reference point. All right, and our IRSs are now beginning to align. In the meantime, I don't believe we have any ATC online. There is a center nearby, but it's not covering us. So I will go, as always, to my FAA ATIS cloud. And one thing I noticed, and I don't know if any of you noticed this, but ATIS.REPORT has gone offline. It doesn't seem to be answering to calls anymore. So, and I did wonder about this for a long time because the way ATIS.REPORT handled stuff, yeah, I wondered for a while. That's it. Did the latest. Was their data source legal? And certainly Navigraph in their forum, when someone mentioned this website, broached that topic and just said we don't know what their source is. We've reached out to them and we have no idea what their source is. Their theory, and I tend to think that maybe it was correct, was someone had found a way to listen in on the ACAR system, and anytime an ATIS was sent to the ACAR system, a copy would be saved by ATIS.REPORT, which is why sometimes it was current, especially at the more popular airports it was current, but then at the smaller airports it was very, where the update rate was a lot lower, oftentimes it would be out of date because no one had requested an ATIS through the ACAR system in that time period. It seems like a very plausible thing, and if that's the case, that may very well have been an unauthorized access model, and that's why the website may have gone offline now. It's a pity, though, because it was such a useful tool as a simmer to have that. Anywho, San Juan here. Information X-ray. The winds are out of the east, 8010, gust 19, 10 miles, fuel 2700, 30 degrees. Nice day. 3002, ILS and visual approaches 10 in use. NOTAMs, runway 8 closed, Alpha closed, Sierra closed. Yeah, so there's a bunch of closures, mostly related to the fact that 08 is closed. Yeah, so information X-ray 3002, and we're using runway 10. So let's go ahead and set 3002. All right, 3002, and we'll set it there. All right, and we're going to need some takeoff data as well. So there we go. That's what I'm looking for. And we do also have a MEL today. So let's pull that up here. For those of you guys that didn't watch the last stream, we did have a failure in flight. We had the thrust reverser unlock fault, which was a fun fault to deal with. It basically resulted in an engine shutdown because it's the safest course of action rather than risk the thrust reverser deploying in flight and rendering the aircraft uncontrollable. So after that, our maintenance guys came along and they deferred the thrust reverser. They locked it out, and they've deferred it till we get back to at least Florida. So we do have MEL 783001 on our flight plan. I could show it to you, but take my word for it. So thrust reverser INOP, repair interval C, that means 10 days to repair it. Number installed 2, number required 0. Placard, yes, we need a placard for it. One or both may be inoperative provided the inoperative thrust reverser is deactivated and secured in the stowed position. And that's what I actually just did here was there is actually an option in the Fenix to stow the thrust reverser. So at maintenance, stow the thrust reverser so it locks it out. You'll see the engine reverse inhibited alert displayed on the engine warning display after deactivation. Reverser unlocked and reverser pressurized alerts associated with the inoperative reverser are not displayed on the EWD after deactivation, so we shouldn't see either of those two. If we see either of those two, something didn't work right. The appropriate performance adjustments are applied. So let's go to the ops chapter, which is here. And thrust reverser, yeah, there it is, 783001 alpha. So flight preparation, determine the associated flight and performance penalties with the Octopus Pro. Okay, so with whatever performance planning program, but you need to make sure we have the thrust reverser INOP, because if you have to do a rejected takeoff, obviously you don't have that thrust reverser available to you. It affects the takeoff performance. It affects how long your accelerated stop distance are. During cockpit preparation, when the FADEC associated with the inoperative thrust reversers have power, confirm that engine 1-2 reverser inhibited alert is displayed on the EWD during takeoff. Briefing, the flight crew must review the status of thrust reversers and the use of thrust reversers. Rejected takeoff, ensure that both thrust levers are set to idle. Detent that if one reverser is inoperative, use both thrust levers when applying reverse thrust. If both thrust reversers are inoperative, do not remove the thrust levers to reverse. So this is the case number 1. We have one reverser inoperative, so we move both thrust reversers to the reverse detent. We don't think about which one is active, which one's not. In case we make a mistake, we just move them both there. One of them will deploy, one of them won't. During approach, we do the same thing. We brief the status of the reversers, and we use them in the exact same way on the landing. We use both reverse levers if one of them is inoperative. And that's what it says here. After touchdown, if one reverser is inoperative, use both thrust levers applying reverse thrust. For automatic rollout with one reverse thrust inoperative, refer to Cat 2-3 operations. I don't think we're doing any Cat 2s or 3s today. After touchdown, if both thrust reversers are inoperative, do not remove them. So that's not the case. So it is the case. We only have one inoperative. We're going to move that lever. So the one thing we are going to need to do today is, what we're going to need to do is a couple things here. We're going to need to load this flight up before it's too late. Start getting some fuel going here. Alright, so they're gonna start loading the aircraft, they're gonna start fueling it, and while they're doing that, we can look at our takeoff performance. So TJSJ runway 10, drive runway it looks like today. Optimal flap is fine, we don't need to force toga. Anti-ice off, and we can do packs on for this departure, I would expect. Sync from our preliminary load sheet, but then I always like to bump it up, so let's go to 70.5. Let's always add an extra half a ton, and that just gives us some margin, some window, so if the weight does go up, we don't have to get new numbers right away. Sync the live weather, that looks good. We're just going to do it from the full length, so go ahead and calculate that. It does give us some valid numbers, but actually what did I not do? I didn't do the failure. And there is no... weird. There's no room in here to input failures, unless I'm missing it. You put intersections in here. Huh. I never noticed that before. I thought I'd done this on here before, but I guess I haven't. I've done it using the company calculator, and the company calculator will come out with valid numbers. So here's what I'm going to do today then, because you should have that option. Any MEL that affects performance, and there's lots of them, you should be able to, and I'm pretty sure we could do it for landing. Yeah, there's landing distance procedures. If there's failures, you've got an option here to select different failures and increase your distance based on the ramifications of whatever failure you have. And the same should be true for takeoff, though. You may not have failures per se before takeoff, but you can have inoperative equipment, and especially stuff that can affect the landing distance, like brakes. You can have a brake inop. You can have I don't think they allow nose wheel steering in OP. I think that was removed from the MEL. But you can certainly have reversers in OP, those kind of things. So what we'll do is we will force TOGA today. So if we force TOGA, that's going to give us better takeoff performance. If we reject, it'll come sooner. So let's just have a look here. So this is flex of 59. It's 39, 42, and 45. It keeps the same speeds, but we're going to reach that distance sooner, and thus we'll have more room to reject if we're at TOGA thrust. So that's not the correct way to do it, but Fenix doesn't actually give us a way to do it. Interesting. I never noticed that before, and it's funny because they even have it as an option. This may be something we have to maybe bring up with Fenix as something that needs to be improved, because it's given here as an option. You can defer that. You can lock this out. It's in their list of available failures here, and it's the one I've turned on. Reverser inhibited by maintenance. This must happen on the ground before you depart. Reverser inhibited by maintenance, but we don't have the performance for the reverser inhibited by maintenance. Interesting. I never noticed that before. I must not have done this one. I do most of the time when I fly offline. I fly with the company performance calculator, because I want to make sure I'm familiar with all the ins and outs of that one. But I'm not going to show it to you guys on stream because what am I trying to do here? Just because it's not appropriate. It's not my data per se. I can use it if I want to in my own personal use, but I'm not going to demonstrate it on stream. So, anywho, yeah. Okay, so we got all that. It looks like our IRSs did finish aligning while we crunched our takeoff numbers. So we can quickly hop in the box and do a couple things here. Nav accuracy upgrade, GPS primary, that's fine. We can go into the ATSU menu and we can initialize our flight here. What are we doing here? AOC menu, airline operations menu. And we can initialize that. Takes about 5 seconds for it to come back here with the correct flight number. Verify everything. Trust but verify. JetBlue 1434, TJSJ-KMCO, alternates KMIA, ETE 246. That all sounds reasonable. And then secondary init request. All right, and we do have a flight plan from TJSJ to KMCO. AOC secondary flight plan uplink. Secondary plan, let's just make sure it makes sense. TJSJ to KMCO. I do recall some of those fixes at least. That looks about right. So I'm going to go ahead and activate that, and we are going to definitely go through that again in more depth. Check takeoff data. We'll do that in a second. All right. And with that, we are ready to start up our overhead flow here. We're going to say this is the first flight of the day today, so we're going to do some of our first flight checks here. There it is. That should be on. I don't think I did the nav lights either. Park and brake. I never did check the fluid levels either. So normally this is the job before you go to the walk around. So when we're sitting here and not doing an actual walk around, it's a little bit more, I hate to say odd, but yeah, a little bit more kind of non-standard. So we're going to test these. And I realized the other thing I didn't do is I didn't start up my FS2 crew here. So this is also going to be behind now. Let's start setting up.
Roger.
And this is Freddie. Freddie is my first officer today. Now he's going to do all this stuff that I just did. Let's see here. We are still refueling, so we're going to leave the pumps off while we're refueling. It is first flight of the day, so we got to check the battery levels here. They're on. They're not charging right now. Turn them off for a second. They should go to off. And you turn them back on and see how much they charge when you first put them back on. And it should be less than 60 amps within 10 seconds, and we are way under that. We got about 6 amps on either side there, 5 amps. So that's very much within limits. We got external power on, that's fine. Now he's going to do the tests, as if he doesn't trust me. He's going to start the APU now, which is way too early. We're not leaving for like a while, so you can press that start button now, but I killed it for you.
I'm up for the walk around.
Because, yeah, it's funny because, like, a lot of this SOP is very European. It's very Airbus. It's very European SOP. But then that's definitely one huge thing with European SOPs is don't start the APU early. Almost every major European airport has a hard and fast rule. You don't start the APU till 10 minutes before departure. They don't want the extra noise. They don't want the extra pollution. And that's fine. That's acceptable. Unless you think you're going to leave early, I think that's a very reasonable course of action. But, yeah, for some reason, FS2 crew, it's like, start the APU at the earliest possible opportunity. And it's like, that's really not terribly realistic. it's wasteful. I mean, and yeah, I mean, you're not actually polluting the environment in the sim. You're not actually creating noise pollution or you know, exhaust or anything else like that. But still, like, if you're trying to keep it realistic. All right, May 14th is correct. And that's what I am always trying to do, is I'm always trying to keep it realistic. While I'm looking down here, let's pull up the CTAF frequency for San Juan. Just pull it up on vPilot here. Oh, I did the wrong thing. I typed weather without even realizing it. No CTAF frequency was found for San Juan. Very good. So then it is the tower frequency, which is 3205. And I assume because it's a U.S. territory that it applies, that the VAT USA rules apply to it, but I could be wrong. And if anybody would like to correct me on that, anyone who's very familiar with VATSIM policy, but it's funny because, like, I'm not the only person who thinks this. A lot of people think San Juan, U.S. territory, and I tend to hear a lot of Unicom calls on 3205 in San Juan. It may not necessarily be administered by VAT USA, but everyone considers it part of the U.S., so. Count, weather, it's good. Stowed, clocked, 12 o'clocks, what are we looking for? Pressurization, 100 feet of the land, sounds good. Cat 2 MEL is fine. Thrust levers are idle. The engines are off, ignition's off. Rudder's neutral, parking brakes on. Alternate landing gear stowed. Can't read that, but it looks like it says 21.5. I'm just going to kill that on the FO side because I find it gets a weird feedback loop sometimes. And I don't know if that came through at all. I think I have it on the wrong output device, yep. But somebody literally just made a call in San Juan. So I'm going to put that on the correct device. Thank you to somebody who did that. So, hey, I don't know, maybe it's not been well publicized by VATCAN, but it certainly feels like everybody seems to think that 3205 should be the correct CTAF frequency in San Juan, and San Juan should be a CTAF as it's part of the USA. All right, all that stuff is good. Just a quick flight has been cross-checked, so 1FD2. I wonder if I can do it this way. Nope. How do I, let's see here.
I'm right next to her. Thank you.
Is there a FO side? Oh, there we go. 1FD2. There we go. Altimeter 3002 inches, indicating about 50 feet. 3002 inches, indicating about 10-20 feet. And 3002 inches, indicating 50 feet. Negative 50 feet. I'm going to have to check it, change that. And heading 1, let's see here, heading 123, 123. What do I call that 123? I forgot to pull the compass down when I went over it, but yeah, 015. Did I say 123? 013. 013. Yeah, 013. 013 and 013. Wow. Alright, check that. We can put it back. And we can hop in the box for some quick programming here. We're supposed to be out the door in 10 minutes. We'll see what happens. I'm in no particular rush. We'll get going when we get going. I never give myself really enough time for this, and I really should start giving myself a little bit more time. So we got the A320-200 V2527 Alpha 5 engines. Database is current for one more day. Today's the 14th of May. We saw it on the clock there. Performance factor is +1. Detuning. I didn't see anything offhand. Let me just pull up my flight plan here and have a quick... oh. There we go. I thought I moved my departure time, but apparently I did not. Alright, so... where am I here? What was I looking for? Oh yeah, NOTAMs. So let's have a real quick look at NOTAMs here. TACAN, SJU TACAN Azimuth US. So really in the Airbus we care about DME. It's a DME IRS system. So what you're looking for especially is DMEs that are offline. That's what's really going to impact your navigation, especially, and it's primarily if you're not GPS equipped. So in most cases it's usually not much of an issue. Let's see here, TACAN Azimuth. Azimuth is fine. What we're looking for is DME. I don't see too much in the way of DMEs offline. That's going to affect, especially near our departure and arrival locations where we need high degrees of accuracy. We don't want invalid offline DMEs affecting us. So I don't see anything in here, any DMEs that are unserviceable that are going to affect us by the looks of it. I don't see anything for the DMEs. All right, so that's fine. All right, so let's go to the initialization page. So we are, again, JetBlue 1434. Going from TJSJ to KMCO, the alternate is Miami. The cost index...
I'm back. No issues on the walk around.
Thank you. Cost index is 9. Cruise flight level 34 initially. 9340. And I think I'm bringing this thing back and forth to show you guys, and it's not even appearing on screen, isn't it? Yeah. I keep on bringing this thing to show you guys. Oh, I hope that you guys saw the whole MEL. Oh, I probably had the MEL on the screen. I was looking at it, and you guys couldn't even see it. I'm sorry, guys. Amateur hour here sometimes, I swear. All right, 34. Average ISA is plus 11, minus 41 actually sounds pretty close, and 52 sounds good for a trope of this tropical latitude. So let's go ahead and do departure out of San Juan. It's going to be runway 10, and we're going to have a sit here. So it does say do the Oconee 3 as far as Sapo, and I feel like I've done this before. I feel like I've done this route before. Oconee 3 as far as Sapo, 10 Oconee 3 Sapo, that's good. Arriving Orlando. Rides to, so 17 left, rides to Octal. Alright, so arrival, ILS 17 left. We might change it once we get underway. Rides to Octal transition, it's all there. ILS 17 left, rides to Octal, that's good. Insert that. Total distance we're looking for is, let's see here, 1115. I got 1092. That's within a reasonable margin of error, especially if there's any vector legs on there. And yeah, we do have one step. I don't think we have any long waypoints, but we do have a step at Rutok. We're supposed to go to 36. So let's see if we can find Rutok here. There it is, Rutok. So step 360. And this is another thing that could be fixed, I think, on the Fenix here, is that if you insert a step climb, there's supposed to be some, what are they called? Some automatically generated waypoints here. So there should be a step climb waypoint when you start the climb at Rutok, and there should be at least a second one when you level off after Rutok. It should have some planned pseudo waypoints. That's what they're called, pseudo waypoints for the top of the climb. And it doesn't show up in the box, but it should. It's supposed to show up in this list as SC, as step climb. Alright, so the flight plan page is good. Let's just check the whole routing here. So it's basically, it's after Sapo, it looks like it's Yankee 280 all the way to Octal, which is what I have in the box, I believe here. Sapo, Yankee 280 all the way to Octal, so that'll take us all the way there. Perfect. RadNav, auto-tune is good for the RadNav. Secondary, I'm just going to recopy the active and put an immediate return here to TJSJ ILS 10, just in case anything happens after departure. We've got a plan. We got something we can put in the box really quick and do a real fast emergency return if necessary.
The security and safety check are all done. Are we good to start boarding?
Go for it.
Okay.
All right, so we got Tanner, RMZ, TJSJ 10. That's good. The primary flight plan still is TJSJ 10 to MCO 17 left, so that's good. Initialization, Bravo page is 0.2 for the taxi, 0 for the route reserve alternate. Where'd it go here? Alternate is 1.8, final reserve of 1.2. So 1.8, 1.2. And let's see here, ZFW, so we should probably have it in the box here now, I would expect. So we'll check it on the number 2 here. We can go back and forth. Received messages, yeah, we got load sheet number preliminary, and we got load sheet final. All right, so 59 tons by 32. 59 tons by 32. And a block fuel of, fuel should be done there, looks like 11.6. 11.6 gives us 70.4, and I believe we did 70.5 numbers, I think. Hold on, where is it here? 70.5, so these numbers will work. I'll send them to the MCDU now. And quick wind component check here. So the average wind component minus 29. And let's see, this changes to 7.1, 251. And it's estimated at 7.6, 249. So it's a little bit under on the burn, a little bit over, but it's within a reasonable margin. It's in the right ballpark anyways. And extra, so we got about a ton extra for weather, plus the contingency should be about 1,400. 1,500 is what I'm showing here, and we actually should have even a little more than that because our burn is showing lower in the FMS. So it's within reason. It's not great, but it's within reason. So we'll go ahead and zero that out and get the wins. And I won't even bother looking at the perf page yet because this will come back in a second here. In the real airplane, it usually takes about 4 or 5 minutes, so you just keep moving on while you wait for the winds to come back. All right, so everything was blue, so that's good. So we've got the takeoff runway 10, no takeoff shift, flaps 3. The stab trim's already set it up, 0.3. Flex takeoff is blank because it's toga takeoff. Yeah, what am I thinking here? Because we got the reverse run up, 139, 142, 145, 1,800, 18,000, and 1510 is what it's got. So we'll leave it at the 1510 across the bottom. 221 is the green dot speed pre-selected for the climb. All right, prog page. Optimal's at 33. We're planned at 34, so we're a little bit above that. The max is at 36.5, so that's fine. I'm going to put SJU, the San Juan VOR, in here just for a distance and bearing. And GPS primary nav accuracy high. Just verify that all the IRSs are naving. 0.3, 0.3, 0.4 is very reasonable. All right, one last look to make sure we don't have any ATC online. We do not, so we're going to do our own clearance. We did get an auto ATC clearance. Please squawk 2403 for your flight. So we're going to go ahead and put that in. 2403. And that's ready to go. And, yeah. I think that's everything we need right now. So, fuel. It is now finished refueling, so we can go ahead and turn on the pumps. Turn on the main tanks. The inner tanks and the center tank is empty, so we're going to leave that off in manual mode, and we can put the seatbelt sign on as well. All right, so fuel is good. Load, we've got the final load sheet that's already been accepted and inputted, verified. Logbook will say we've checked, we've done the ramp check, the service check, and there's no open snags. Maintenance has deferred this. The only MEL is the one we have on the flight plan. All right. Let's just have a quick look at the departure, make sure that everything in the departure here makes sense versus the chart. So for the SID today, it's the Akoni 3. Yes, we're supposed to leave in a second here. And what we'll do is start the APU. Start the APU. Apparently he's not going to listen to me, so I'll just do it myself. Okay, so let's see here. So this is the Akoni 3 RNAV departure, GPS radar RNAV for jets only, so that's all fine. Nothing really special in that. The top altitude I see is 5,000. Runway 10, it's climb heading 101 to 520, then climbing left turn 350 is assigned by ATC for vectors to Akoni, then on track 327 to Paldi. So let's have a quick little look-see here. And it is 520, heading 350, manual leg, and vectors to Akoni, track 320 to Paldi, and then for Paldi it is direct to Sapo. So there we go, that's all in there. So yeah, I think everything is programmed in the box correctly here. Are you ready for the departure briefing?
Go ahead.
Okay, so technical status of the aircraft. We do have the one MEL with the reversers. We did review the ops procedure, but basically we've got the takeoff calculation. We'll say we have the takeoff calculation. In reality, the AFP doesn't let us do that, but we just put a toga takeoff in there to mitigate that risk there. We make sure that we have the engine 1-2 reverse inhibited once we get the FADEC on, and we definitely should not have the reverser pressurized, reverser unlocked once we energize the FADEC. During the takeoff briefing, we must review the status of the thrust reverser. So we have the left side. Number 1 reverser is in op, and In the case of a rejected takeoff, it's still going to be reverser number 1, or reverser number 2 is going to be available to us, so we're just going to do both engines to max reverse. One of them's going to go, one of them's not. If anything, the airplane will pull to the right. We should expect that and be ready to correct to the left. If we're unable to correct to the left enough, we can back off the reversers. NOTAMs, the biggest thing really is that 8 is closed here in San Juan, so that there's a whole bunch of NOTAMs regarding that. But regarding 10, I didn't really see too much. Yeah, a lot of Sierra taxiways, which is the parallel to 826, is fine. SID doesn't affect us. If we had to come back on runway 10, yeah, nothing that really affects us at all on 10. So no NOTAMs. Its departure is the Oconee 3 departure out of San Juan 10-3. The routing constraints are all as published. The top altitude is 5,000. Setting it with my mini FCU, 5,000 feet is set, and yeah, no special notes on that plan. The noise abatement for San Juan, I'm going to believe there's nothing published because there seldom is in the U.S. And in the event of an engine failure, we'll just fly the SID as well. It'll be a left turn out over the ocean. Once we get out over the ocean, once we're above 2,000 feet, we are in the clear. We don't have to worry about. We don't have to worry about terrain. Once we're out over the ocean, we can deal with it and plan to come back here. Performance in the box today for the left seat departure off of runway 10 is dry runway, no takeoff shift, flaps 3. Toga takeoff, V1-139, VR-142, V2-145, stand transition 18,000, 1510 across the bottom for the departure, 221 the green dot speed, pre-selected for the climb. It's going to be a managed departure. We got climb blue, nav blue, so we'll get the autopilot on probably before we hit 1,000 feet, just because it's supposedly 2 crew, but really it's in reality in the sim, it's single pilot, so that keeps the workload down, lets us focus on flying the airplane. Yeah, RadNav auto-tune is good. Because it's Toga takeoff, it's 3 clicks in and 2 clicks out for this one. It is packs on, so that's fine. We don't have to worry about the packs. Weather is good, and I've got nothing else really for threats. Any questions?
No questions.
All right. APU's up and running. And we could probably get the beacon on and trigger the next step of the Fenix here. That'll take away the ground power within seconds, and they'll call up the tug here. So we should get going here. Let me just make sure that this is connected to the server here. So yeah, we do see that we are connected to the flight simulator stage pre-flight. So it does know I didn't forget to run FSU IPC like I sometimes do. I think we're just about ready to go.
Hello, Captain. We are ready for pushback.
Cockpit preparation checklist. Right.
Gear pins and covers.
Roger that, standby. Removed. Removed.
Fuel quantity.
11.6 tons.
Seat belts.
On.
Adios.
Nav. Nav. Nav.
Baro ref.
3002 inches set.
3002 set. Cockpit preparation checklist completed.
Alright, I'm just going to refresh the ATIS here one time.
Anti-ice.
Cancel checklist.
Roger.
It says 3003 now, so we're going to put 3003 in. And it seems reasonable anyways. Before start checklist.
Parking brake.
Set.
Takeoff speeds and thrust.
V1-139, VR-142, V2-145,
Hi guys, here's
Toga.
the load sheet for you.
Toga.
V1158, VR160, V2161, flex temp 62 degrees. Windows.
Closed.
Beacon.
On.
Before start, checklist completed.
All right. Yeah, I forgot to put the briefing in there because FS2 crew still can't get it out of Fenix yet, but hopefully one day they will. All right. Are these guys ready? You know what they're probably waiting for? They're waiting for my command, right?
Release parking brakes, please. Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at wheel.
All right. So here we go on our way to Orlando. Farewell, San Juan. Starting engine 2.
Okay.
And there's the engine 1 reverse inhibited message. So because that's expected by the MEL, clear engine 1. Clear engine 1 status. And nothing, just a Cat 2 and op. Remove status. Remove status. All right, now we can go ahead and start the engine 2 here. So we got that up. Valves open. Rotation is starting. And I did a reinstall of my Latin VFR San Juan, so I don't know if you guys remember from the end of the last stream too, but there were trees all over San Juan. That must have come in some kind of a sim update. So I uninstalled, reinstalled the Latin VFR San Juan, and it seems to have cleared out that problem. I just hope that Orlando is okay, because I haven't actually checked it recently. I'm not sure why the flaps are at 1+F. That's weird. Maybe I moved that at some point. Anything's possible. Alright, we are stopped.
Unlocking gear.
Brakes are set, confirm the pins removed. Alright, that looks like a good start on number 2. Starting engine 1.
Okay.
Alright. It is a lot of work sometimes to do this kind of work. And it's funny, we were talking about this the other day, why like people think pilots are overpaid, like we sit on our rear ends all day and just don't do much, and it's true in a way.
Total disconnecting. Bypass pin remover.
In that a lot of stuff we don't
Left is clear. Right is clear.
we don't do because a lot of systems do a lot of the work for us. But the key is that it frees up our mental capacity so that we can focus on what are the big threats and risks to the flight today, what could be going wrong, what can we plan for ahead of time, that sort of thing. Keep our workload down. It's all designed with that idea of keeping our workload low so that we are ready to respond to threats. And when we do have an unusual threat, there he is, he's got the pin, perfect. We can respond to it appropriately. We have the spare mental capacity to do so because the airplane is fairly automated, will fly itself for the most part. We can focus on managing the whole situation, and that's by design. That's intentional, but it means that if things things go well, nothing goes wrong with the airplane. There's not often a whole lot to do. All right, so engines 2 and 1 are both normal. After start checklist.
Anti-ice.
Off.
ECAM status.
Checked.
Pitch trim.
Point 3, nose up. Set and checked.
Rudder trim.
Neutral.
After start checklist completed.
Clear left side.
Clear right side.
Guess I'll take that park brake off. San Juan traffic. JetBlue 1434 is at the terminal. We're taxiing for departure, runway 10. Brake check.
Pressure 0.
Flight control check. Flight control check.
Full up. Full down. Neutral. Full left. Full right. Neutral. Full left. Full right. Neutral.
Taxi checklist. Taxi checklist.
Flight controls.
Checked.
Checked. Flap settings.
Config 3.
Config 3. Radar and predictive wind shear system.
On and auto.
Engine mode selector.
Normal.
ECAM memo.
No blue. Takeoff, no blue. Takeoff, no blue. Takeoff, no blue.
Taxi checklist completed.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board our flight today. This is the lead flight attendant.
Alright, so we're gonna just wait a second here.
To the cabin crew for important safety information. There is an instruction card in your seat
Because we're waiting for the cabin crew to call and say that they are secure, and we're gonna get to beep in a second. It was a pretty short taxi out, so they need to finish their demo.
With this information, as well as all crew instructions, lighted information
Yeah, that's
signs,
FS2 crew
and
doing the verbal checklist, and they're generally pretty good. They don't conform to the checklist that I'm used to, which is why they catch me off guard, and things are in weird flows and weird orders. These are very much not the checklists and flows that I'm used to, but it's what FS2 crew has, so it's what I have to go with. But yeah, things like spoilers, he missed the flaps, he missed the spoilers, and it doesn't shut off, and the APU is not done in the after start checklist, which is just, it's all stuff that, yeah, it's unusual for me. So we're just holding short here, we're just waiting for the cabin crew to say they're ready. We are on VATSIM. There is no ATC. At least there wasn't when I checked 30 seconds ago. Yeah, there are no controllers at all in this part of the world right now, unfortunately. What are you going to do? So now we're just waiting for the cabin to be secured. And that's a short taxi. And that's one of those things that you will tell the cabin crew as well, is you'll tell them if it's a short taxi like that. Like that was what? That was a 4-minute taxi out once we get the airplane ready here. So that's one of those things where you would actually tell the cabin crew in advance, just so that they can prep for it. They can they can plan to do everything quickly and try and get anything that they can done before you even leave the gate. So things like, you know, if they can brief special passengers, if they can start the demo before you can start pushing back off the gate, if they know specifically that it's a short taxi. So it's one of those things where you will try to tell the flight attendants if it is going to be a short taxi. Oh, I didn't even hear it beep, probably because we were out of the flight deck. Flight deck captain speaking.
The cabin is now secure for takeoff.
Perfect, thank you. That probably beeped while I was out looking at the outside. Alright, so now they're ready. Alright, now we're good to go. San Juan traffic. JetBlue 1434 taking position runway 10 for departure. Left turn out of Coney 3 departure. Give me a minute to get off the ground and I'll answer the Unicom question. Alright, so clear on the left. Clear on the right. Cleared for departure.
Takeoff runway confirmed. Approach path clear of traffic. Cabin crew be seated for takeoff.
Lineup checklist.
Takeoff runway.
10 confirmed.
Runway 10 confirmed. TCAS.
TARA.
Packs 1 and 2.
On.
Lineup checklist completed.
Takeoff.
Check.
Mantoga, SRS runway, auto thrust blue.
Checked. Thrust set. knots.
Roger.
B1. Rotate. Positive climb.
Gear up.
Gear up.
Nav. Autopilot 1. Climb, all blue. Thrust climb, auto thrust. Flaps 1.
Speed checked. Flaps 1.
San Juan traffic. JetBlue 1434. Climbing northbound through 2500 for 5000 on the Oconee 3 departure. Final call, San Juan. Flap 0.
Speed checked. Flap 0.
Alright, so we are through 3,000 feet. We're well above the MSA here over the ocean, so we can go ahead and go direct to Oconee. There it is, direct to Oconee. Insert. There's nav. Oconee. And we're more or less in the right direction, so we're going to go ahead and push speed, manage speed. And we'll set a higher altitude than 40 to 5,000, so we'll go ahead and set our cruise of 34. Flight level 340 is set, roger, 340. And we are underway on a pilot's life season, what are we on now? Season 12, leg, I forget which leg. I think we're on like leg 6 or something, or leg 7. And you get in the airline life, it all just blends together. Okay, we are on our way up, technically sterile flight deck for the next 5,000 feet. So, Wutan asked, does VATSIM give you a Unicom code for these areas even with no ATC? So, yes and no. So, traditionally on VATSIM, it was always 122.8. Anywhere you were without ATC, you were on frequency 122.8. That was the universal Unicom frequency, which is an ironic, or not ironic, but a redundant way to say it, because Unicom literally stands for universal communication. But that was the frequency used anywhere around the world, anybody that was in uncontrolled airspace. But what they found, of course, was that at some major areas where there were multiple airports within close vicinity of each other, there's a pilot up there, there were problems with too many pilots trying to kind of communicate, like especially like New York, where you have Kennedy, LaGuardia, Newark, all in very close vicinity, and even Teterboro, White Plains, etc. Too many pilots at different airports, but communicating on the same frequency, trying to all sort of make their own proper traffic calls, and confusion reigns. So, starting, I think it was the 1st of March. VATSIM is starting a new trial where there are customized CTAF frequencies at every airport, but this trial is only taking place right now in the USA. So does San Juan qualify? It is not part of the mainland USA. It is a what am I trying to say here? It is a territory of the USA. It's not really managed by VAT USA, who's supposed to be kind of running the trial, or at least where the trial is supposed to take place. So I have not got a definitive answer about whether or not San Juan is supposed to have one. But basically, the idea is that it will usually be the tower frequency at whatever airport you're at. So before we departed, I had a look out there to make sure that I knew. And the tower frequency was... that's the departure frequencies, but the tower frequency is right here, is 3205. So that was what I used as the CTAF frequency. If there's only one tower frequency published, that's going to be the CTAF frequency at any airport in the US. There's a nice little shortcut, a nice little trick here, and that is that if you have vPilot up, you can type in .ctaf, and it didn't work for San Juan, but if I do for KMCO, for example, so it's .ctaf space KMCO, I get the CTAF frequency. So the frequencies have been defined in the VATSIM network, and yeah, I'll show you them in a second. There's the 10,000. That's almost 11,000 now for flight level 340. We have accelerated. He's got all the lights off, seatbelts. It's a beautiful day. Let's take the bloody seatbelts off. Let my people pee, as they say. So there's lights off. Good. Got airport mode. Let's just recheck he's done everything here. So RadNav is auto tuning. Nothing to detune. Secondary, we're going to recopy it now because we don't need that immediate return. And the prog page says we are still good up to 36.6 with an optimal 34, which is what we're going to, so that's perfect. We've got 121.5 guard up on number 2. We're listening. Let's see. Cabin is pressurizing. We're already up to a diff of 4.0 psi, and a fuel page, quick fuel check. We've burned about 900 kilos, and we're at about 10.7, so that means we started with 11.6, which is exactly correct. That all adds up, so we're not leaking any fuel. The fuel is balanced. We're good to go. Yeah, so you can do it in vPilot, and that's actually a really nice shortcut if you've got vPilot up. If you want to be a little bit more professional about it, you can look on the charts, but the trouble is you get to some airports and there's multiple tower frequencies, so which one do you use? And I think KMCO, I think, would be an example of that. I'm pretty sure they have multiple tower frequencies, so if you go to the KMCO airport info page 10-9, and you'll see that we have 2 different tower frequencies, 24.3 and 18.45. So which one to use as the CTAF frequency? Again, that's where you can go to vPilot and ask vPilot. CTAF frequency for KMCO is designated as 118.45. So that's the primary tower frequency. That's the one used as CTAF frequency. The other place you can go to get that information is, if I can find it here. Oh, good, my ad blocker was updated. Thank you. Is if you go to myvatsim.net, my.vatsim.net, and then you go to the VATSIM AIP, and you can search for any ICAO. It'll give you all the information that has been registered with VATSIM about this airport. So this is not actually compiled by VATSIM. It's collected by VATSIM, but it's actually submitted by all the individual member FIRs and ARTCCs and all the subdivisions submit the information. So again, if I go KMCO here and put a search in here, it'll give me all the information I need about KMCO. Airport information, get a little map, METAR, TAF, etc., links to charts, but the important thing here is, of course, the frequencies. So we have a number of frequencies here, and it will list a CTAF frequency here in the VATSIM AIP. You'll see it matches exactly what is in what is in the vPilot, because vPilot accesses the same database of information to ask that question. It asks, I believe, vPilot queries the VATSIM server directly, and the VATSIM server then responds. So it's the same database of information available here. And there's even the notice, VATSIM United States, VAT USA division will be trialing the real-world CTAF frequency starting March 1st. So, yeah, I guess probably in San Juan we probably shouldn't be using the CTAF frequency, but it seems like it's been my experience that everyone does. that everyone is using the CTAF frequency, the tower frequency for San Juan as a CTAF frequency. So now that we're clear of San Juan, I should have switched back to, and there it is, 22.8. So now we're listing on 22.8 is still the universal en route frequency. So if you need to converse with people en route, coordinate with people en route, we use that frequency. All right, so there's transitions.
Standard cross-checked. Passing flight level 182. Now.
Perfect. Love it. Thank you. All right, but that's it. That we are now underway on another leg. Hopefully we'll find something interesting to do today. It hasn't been too long. Last week was a bit of a busy week in my life. Not terribly busy, but a little bit busy. I think we were a little bit late on departure there. So we got airborne 14 minutes ago. I think we were probably about 5 to 10 minutes late leaving the gate. Hopefully we can get to Orlando on time. So the scheduled arrival time for Orlando, I believe, was 17... What was it, 17:36 or something like that? And what are we looking at? 17:17. So we're actually looking at potentially an on-time arrival. We left 5 to 10 minutes late, but there's enough of a buffer built into the system that we are able to make up this time en route, barring any weather deviations, ATC holding, etc. And I don't think we're going to have to worry too much about that today. Right now we don't have too much ATC online. I'm just pulling up VATSIM on my other computer here just to look at KMCO, and we do have a couple of inbounds, but it does not look very busy at KMCO. So yeah, getting underway, but and I was looking at this, so I know Taxi2Gate released KMCO scenery, but boy, is there a lot of complaints about it. Some people really like it, and some of the scenery is really good, but boy, there's a lot of complaints about it too. So I was on the fence. It's also a little bit pricey scenery-wise, and that was probably the biggest complaint. There was a lot of complaints about unusable taxiways that had way too many hills, the bridges, and there's a number of taxiways that go over bridges in Orlando, and there was a number of complaints about the bridges not working properly, not being existent, or you're able to get underneath the bridge somehow and then you're stuck, and so there was a lot of, it sounds like there's a lot of issues people have with the Taxi2Gate or KMCO, which is unfortunate, because it's one of those cases where like it would have been nice to have. The bespoke airport is okay, it's not great, it's okay, it does the job. A detailed, well put together version would be great. But I was a little hesitant about it, partly also because of the cost, because it's actually a little bit on the pricey side by MSFS scenery standards, and it's not completely, but for the number of issues that seem to be talked about here, I think it was $24 US or something, I believe, or maybe it's 24 euros. 24 euros. 25, 26 US dollars. Like that's a pretty pricey. It looks pretty good in the videos, but to read the reviews, the reviews are very mixed. 3 out of 10 on average. Some people really like it. It looks like the buildings are done. It looks like the new terminal is there. That looked like the new terminal there, but some of the stuff like the taxiway bridges, like there's a number of bridges that go over. There's another number of bridges that go over taxiways, things like that. So there's a lot of complaints. Below average scenery, airside one lane taxiway generally has a number of humps in the taxiway. Get it on sale when you really want MCO. I really want to enjoy it, but it can be hard at times. And that seems to be kind of the common sentiment. People want to like this airport, and Taxi2Gate has done good stuff in the past, but and the other thing too is sadly they've made no effort to fix the bugs, despite the fact it was released a while ago. So let's see here. The release date was 2023 July 14, so that was almost a year ago. That's a long time to be, with known bugs kind of sticking in there. And I haven't heard anything too much about updates, and a lot of it looks really good. You've got interior stuff and everything, and that's always nice. Interiors don't sell me though. I thought it was hilarious that April Fool's post that somebody did that said, like, from now on we're going to stop modeling airport exteriors. We're just going to model just the terminal interiors. I find that funny, but it's like it's a bit of a funny commentary on like how much effort is being put into these interiors, and it adds something. But most of us, the average simmer is not going to wander through the terminal too much. They'll see it through the windows, and it's nice to know there's something there. But I don't necessarily need a hugely detailed interior. And I'd rather you put more effort onto the exterior. If I had to pick between the exterior and the interior, put more effort on the exterior. It's nice to know there's something in there. It doesn't have to be super detailed. It's nice to know there's something in the windows. It definitely has an impact. It definitely makes it look like it's a real place, not just a block with a picture of a window on the outside. It looks like the trains, little commuter trains and everything are functional, but just to read some of the complaints about taxiway bridges, things like that are not workable, and the price. And I mean, even like I'm pretty sure I qualify for the discounted price of €21.99, and it's like that's getting pretty pricey by the modern MSFS scenery standards. It's the price of the average scenery in MSFS has gone down a little bit from what it was in the P3D era, and I think that's justifiable because it's a much bigger market. This sim is much more popular than any of the previous generations of sims were. There's so many people using it. A lot of them are casual simmers who are not going to, casual players that are not going to spend much time or much money on additional software. But I think that the overall sim base has increased, though. I think that as much as I despise the Xbox attitude towards the user interface and everything on MSFS, there's something to be said for having a wider market to appeal to, and maybe, you know, I'm sure most of the Xbox people that have picked up this game and played it have fooled around with it a little bit and then be like, meh, okay, fine, I did it, whatever. A small percentage of them were like, wow, this is really cool, the stuff you can do, and got seriously into it. So yeah, I think the market has increased. I think the market size has increased. So I think there's a reasonable justification for let's decrease the overall price of scenery because we can diversify this across the bigger market. And at the end of the day, most people are going to spend within a fixed budget. So yeah, I don't know. I understand developers need to charge what a piece of software is worth, but I was really enjoying when the sim was first released, and it seemed like a lot of the prices were on downward trajectory, and like most of the stuff seemed to be kind of not half price, but like at least a third less than it was in the FSX P3D era. And it seems like we've moved past that now, and now it's no longer the case. Now it's much more. We're getting back to where we were, where it's like $30, $35 sometimes for an airport, and it's like, I mean, it's got to be good. It's got to be somewhere I'm going to go to a lot. And MCO, I think, is somewhere I would go a lot, but still, just for the fact that it has all these glitches and it doesn't seem like anyone's ready to address them. Let's see here. Publisher, do they have a? They have put out a fair bit of stuff here. Or MSFS now. They were kind of, Taxi2Gate was quiet for a while, and now they've really kind of come back with a vengeance. But yeah, I just feel like they're a little bit on the high side of the pricing model, especially if they're not going to have the follow-up service. And this is one of those things. Taxi2Gate's kind of a little bit of an odd, not an odd developer, but a little bit of a come and go developer. If you kind of understand what I'm saying, like they're out, you know, they were out for a long time, they were active for a while, then they kind of went silent for a while, then they came back again, and it's like you know, you look at their website, like their forum, and it doesn't exist. Updates to FSX and P3D, FS9 updates, P3D version 4 and 5. They don't even have an updates page for MSFS. Like. Yeah, it's one of those things where it feels like and even like their website, high quality sceneries for Flight Simulator 2004 and X. And I want to like their scenery, and I want to, you know, but even their website is like laughably out of date. Sceneries, FSX, FS9. Like they don't even have a menu option. They don't even have like any of their MSFS stuff. So you kind of feel like, I don't know, just. Where's the follow-up? Where's the support? Like, especially you want 25 or 30 of my dollars. Like, what's the follow-up? What's the support? You know, if things are not, because an airport that has like serious problems with like lumpy taxiways or missing textures and things like that, I need to know that you're going to fix that stuff. If that stuff makes an airport unusable, then my money is gone. It's wasted, and I don't get anything to show for it. So I need to know like there's some follow-up on scenery, and most of the senior developers are generally pretty good, pretty responsive, pretty active with the community, engage with the community, and provide at least somewhat regular updates. And I'm not asking for an update every month, but every 6 months to a year, especially if there's glitches, things that make an airport hard to use, things that like taxiways that are broken, you know, I'm not asking you. I'm not asking for $30 for you to have a perpetual license where you're going to update every single little taxiway change or something that comes along. Like, okay, they've added new buildings and new taxiways. I'm not expecting that for the $30. It's great if you do provide it, and a lot do. But if the scenery you put out there right now has got bugs and glitches in it as you've published it, I expect you to fix that. I expect you to, you know, that to me, like the idea is like I'm exchanging money for a working, usable piece of scenery, and if it's not working and usable, I expect you to fix that. And that's Taxi2Gate has always been a little bit on that side of just their follow-up is not great. They seem to work in spurts, and all of a sudden they'll release something great, and then you won't hear from them for 6 or 9 months, and then they'll come out with some more scenery, and you won't hear from them. And sometimes you wouldn't hear from them for a couple of years. There was a period there where they just sort of seemed to vanish. Everyone thought they had just, you know, closed up shop because they were just nothing happened for a long time. And then they came back and they released a whole bunch of new scenery, and it's great. But yeah, where's the follow-up? Like most other developers are usually like at least once a year or so they'll release an update to their scenery, and certainly if there's glitches they'll release little minor updates to try and fix these glitches. So I expect that. I expect your software to be reasonably usable when you hand it off to me. And that's certainly if you're charging a higher price too. And that's the other thing too. Like you're charging with the top end developers there. You're up into the Flight Tampa, the Flight Beam level pricing. I expect you to provide the same level of service. If you wanna just put an airport out there and run away, charge the field their price. Charge $10 an airport. Don't charge $25 an airport and then expect to just run away from it with no follow-up, no service. That bugs me. That really bugs me. There's so much of this world, companies are there's no follow through anymore. There's no customer service anymore. I could rant on that endlessly, but so often, like we don't get customer service anymore. You get sold something, and then the minute the warranty expires, nobody's going to help you again. There's 333 climbing 340.
Ladies and gentlemen, in just a few moments, we'll begin our meal service for the flight. Please refer to the menu given to you on boarding for the 2 meal choices and your beverage choices available. We request that you keep the aisles clear to assist the flight attendants, to serve you efficiently, and also for your own safety. Thank you.
Alright, there's Mach Alt Star. I might turn the airplane noise down just a little bit so it's not completely drowning me out. I hope the balance is reasonable. Let me know if you think it's reasonable, if you think it could be louder or quieter. But there's Alt Cruise. So we can do a quick cruise procedure here. So let's just have a quick look over the whole flight deck again. Make sure that everything is as it should be. Let's see here. Fuel pumps are off, and let's just have a quick look at the fuel page. There is still nothing in the center tank as before. And you may laugh that I say that, like where would the fuel come from? But what you often find in the real airplane, especially, is that the fuel does come and go a little bit. Basically the fuel's there, but just as it sloshes around the tank, as it moves close to one sensor or another, then sometimes the values will go up or down a little bit. You might start with 0 in the main tank, in the center tank, and then after 20 minutes or 30 minutes in the air, you might suddenly see 20 or 30 kilos because the fuel's moved around as the airplane's shifting, banking, pitching to different areas in the tank. Like within, I would say probably within 20 to 30 kilos, that's probably pretty accurate, but you may see a little bit of residual fuel in the tank that was not there before that is there now, and vice versa. Alright, just going through the whole flight deck, making sure that all the switches are in the right location. I've been airborne for 27 minutes already. 27 minutes to get to cruise is not bad in a 320. And we're not super heavy today. We're you know, we got a pretty good load, but we don't have a whole ton of fuel. We got about a half tank of fuel in the airplane. Just check all the SD screens as well. Make sure everything looks pretty reasonable. That all looks very reasonable. I'll circle back to the fuel page just a second here. No unusual readings on anything. Tires are all inflated. Flight controls are all neutral, which is the way they should be. Fuel. So again, we'll add this up. Pretty close to balanced. 47. Yeah, 95, 96, that's good, 96, and then we burned 2,000, so that would be 11.6. So yeah, the fuel's still all accounted for. I don't believe there is a fuel leak. Quick RVSM check here. Let's see here, we're at 34,000. 34,000 and 34,000, and standby is seldom ever that good. In all honesty, the standby is seldom on. Good. Alright, I have control. What just happened there? Did I press something, or was that just some turbulence? Simulator invoked turbulence, and I think that's all it was there. High altitude, you gotta be very gentle with this thing. I think it's okay. Let's just try to put the autopilot back on again here. Autopilot 1. Okay. I think it was okay. I think it was just a little bit of simulator invoked turbulence. The only thing I was going to do here was also check the compass. You got to check it on the first flight of the day. We're at about 320. Yeah, it's very reasonable anyways. Plus or minus 8 degrees you're allowed on the compass. So that's a lot. And we're just coming to Sapo, so we're going to do a little fuel check over Sapo here. That's 32 miles, but we'll do it 32 miles. We'll get the fuel check underway. Otherwise, I think we're good to go. I don't see any reason not to continue at this point at the start of the cruise phase. So yeah, I could rant on endlessly about it, but companies just seem to have no follow through on customer service. If they are required legally to have a 1-year warranty period, then they'll have a 1-year warranty period, and they will never touch you at the after, you know, on day 366. They will not touch you, and legally they're not obligated to. But there's more in this life than just what is my legal obligation to everything in this world. What else? Because the companies that do have the follow through, it's amazing how much that makes the customer want to do business with them in the future. Yes, it costs some money to provide aftermarket service, after warranty service to consumers, but there's a lot of goodwill to be had for that. And so many companies, so many markets, so many markets are dominated by just a few small companies that. But not a few small companies, a few large companies, a small number of large companies that they feel like, it's okay if they don't come buy from us next time, because they'll probably buy from us the second time after that. You know, like, you get so many of the industries, like the telecom industry, where there's only a handful of big players, and that's basically it. So, you know, if you don't go to one, you're going to go to the other. They know you're going to come back eventually, and they just don't care anymore. They just don't care about their customers. They don't care about trying to keep their customers happy, or trying to help their customers, trying to understand their customers even, and keep. Yeah, it's so frustrating, because the few companies I can think of that do provide fantastic aftermarket, after warranty service are the ones that get my business hands down. Not only get my business, but they get my recommendation over and over and over again. The one that comes to mind, and I probably brought this up before on stream, but WaterMaid is a brand of pool supplies. And it's funny because it's almost pool season. I'm thinking about starting opening the pool this week, so it's kind of front of mind again. But it's a brand of pool supplies that is actually based in Australia, and they have a small distribution network in North America. And when we moved into our house, it had a WaterMaid chlorine generator already installed in the pool system, and so I didn't know anything about pools when I moved in here, so I needed a lot of help with it in the beginning. I reached out to the company just to ask questions when things were not working properly, and they were very responsive, because it's a very small team. It's like I gather from dealing with them, like, it's probably about 2 people, maybe 3 people. Very small team that distributes the product in Canada, but they provide phenomenal first-person service. If you email them, within a couple days they'll get back to you with answers. You can call them and they will answer. A human being will answer and will deal with you. And it's Hayden UK, good morning. And they'll provide that answer, and even, you know, they'll provide service at no cost, because you purchase this unit. And like anything related to a pool is not cheap to up front. These things, I think, I don't even know what they are now. I think they're $2,000 or $2,500 a piece up front to buy them. But to know that you can get the aftermarket service, and the case in point, like the one unit I had, it started, the red light started flashing on it the 1 year, and I emailed them. I said, what is, you know, the red light flashing? It usually is not a good thing. It's like, yeah, you can try these couple things. If this doesn't work, open it up, have a look at it, see if anything looks damaged or loose. And I got back to them. I said, it doesn't look like anything's damaged. Like, it's probably the circuit board is probably damaged, and you know, needs to be replaced. I'll send you one for free, or I'll send you a circuit board if you just pay for shipping. I've got a whole bunch on my workbench from other units that I've replaced, that I've taken the old units back to the shop to part them out. I've got these circuit boards literally lying around my shop. I'll send you one just for the cost of shipping, no cost for the circuit board. See if that works. If that doesn't work, okay, then it may not. You may need to buy a new unit, but at least a try. And so that alone was phenomenal. The next day we actually went camping. So I didn't have a chance to get a hold of this guy. I think it might have even happened while I was camping that I managed to get an answer from this guy. But we went camping for a couple days. I come back from camping. There's a box on my porch, no postage on it. There's just a box on my porch with no postage on it. I open it up. There's not one, but there's 2 spare circuit boards inside. And the guy had emailed me. I looked later, and the guy had emailed me. He said, "Yeah, I had a service call. Out an hour past your house. So I just dropped it off at your house. I didn't even bother waiting for you to give me the shipping information." So he literally drove it to my house, dropped it on my porch, and placed it on the porch, and carried on with what he was doing because it was kind of on his way. But that kind of service, like, it's just beyond phenomenal. That's the kind of service that companies should be trying to provide to their customers, because that guy has got a lifelong customer. Not only has he got a lifelong customer for me, I'll pay whatever. I won't pay whatever, but I will pay a very reasonable price to replace the unit I have, which is probably coming up to its replacement age, with the newer version of the same product. I will gladly pay the replacement price because I know I'm going to get follow-up service with that. I know that if something goes wrong, it's going to be, at least I have someone I can talk to, someone that will help, walk me through any issues I might have. That kind of service, and not only that, but I will tell anybody and everybody that has a pool that will listen to me that this company, it's a little bit awkward because they're not commonly stocked in most pool stores. Most pool stores don't know how to deal with them because their product is a little bit different than the standard stuff you get in most of the pool stores, the cheap, probably made in China stuff you get in most pool stores. But the contrast, the customer service you get as a follow-up is just so worth it. And I'm happy to vote with my dollars and avoid places that have terrible customer service, and vote with my dollar to take that money to places that do have good customer service. And you look at things like even like the boycott of Loblaws in Canada that's trying to happen right now, and certain people are on it, and it's got to make at least a little bit of a dent. Certainly maybe not a huge, but it's got to be moving the needle a little bit. I kind of understood the people's rationale behind it. I wasn't going to support it, and then literally the day it was supposed to be for the month of May, and literally the first day of May, Loblaws reports their first quarter results and announces they're increasing their shareholder dividend by 50%. And I was just like, really? Like, this is what you're doing? Like, are you so tone deaf to the market? Like, yes, food is expensive, and yes, the grocery stores do not set the price per se. They have suppliers. They have to pay for the product. They don't make the product. They just simply stock the product on their shelves. But when you're obviously making enough profit that you can increase your shareholder dividend by 50%, maybe that is a sign that, yeah, it's definitely not a market that I understand. Grocery stores are big business. It's a lot of revenue. It's a very slim profit margin on that large amount of revenue. But when you're talking about the large amount of revenue and what the profit margin is on that, I'm not saying they can't make a profit. I'm absolutely not saying that. But when you're making enough of a profit that you can increase your shareholder dividend, somebody's paying for that increase in shareholder dividend. And that somebody is all the consumers in the country who are shopping at your stores are paying for that dividend increase. So if you have enough extra profit that you can increase your dividend by that percentage, I think you can probably stand to reduce your prices by a percentage. And maybe it's not much, but the price increases have not kept pace with inflation, and I'm happy to see that. Like, it seems to be a common theme I've read in the last couple of weeks, is that the retailers are balking at the price increases now because consumers have given up and said, I am not paying that price for this, that, and the next thing. Food is one of the exceptions, but especially in the discretionary spending markets in North America, consumers are just fed up, and they're just they're speaking with their wallets by closing their wallets. They don't have the extra money to spend to begin with, but these never-ending inflationary increases are simply not sustainable. People's wages are not increasing at a rate that is comparable to the price increases that retailers are demanding. So clothing stores are having massive discounts trying to move product because they're not moving any product because nobody can afford it. Nobody wants to pay $27 or $35 for a t-shirt anymore. a lot of durable goods, a lot of furniture and major appliances all of a sudden are being heavily discounted because all these companies looked at the market and said, "Oh, look, inflation's 10%. We can raise our prices by 10%. Maybe we can raise our price by 20% and just blame inflation." And in some cases, I think it was partly justified, but I think in most cases, not retailers but also manufacturers vastly overshot the mark on how much of an increase the market really could sustain. Yes, there's inflation. Yes, the prices are going up, but wages were not going up enough to keep up with inflation. And a lot of, especially with the discretionary spending, a lot of retailers and manufacturers are suddenly cutting their prices substantially to try and move product because they found that there was a limit to how much how much inflation people could accept. And that limit was surpassed in the last year or so. And as a result, people just are not buying. They're not going to stores. They're looking for any deal they can get their hands on. And if it's not a deal, they're just not parting with their money. And it's good to see that consumers do still have sway in the market, because some days it feels like, certainly as an individual consumer, you have zero sway in the market. But as a unit, consumers are huge. But we all have to vote with our dollar. We all have to remain principled. And when we vote with our dollar, I vote with my dollar against any store that refuses to hire cashiers. There's a number of stores that will not stock, that do not have any cashiers, that they're all. Yet Joe tells us we are all good. I'm not even going to get into politics, because the funny thing is that in a lot of ways it is very good right now. The unemployment rates has reached real lows, but certainly the inflation is just, yeah. The trouble is that most retailers are out of control, and a lot of the corporations and the CEOs are all out of control. They're the ones that really need to be reined in. Need more control over the market, more regulation, and certainly not less. The market's not going to get better if there's less regulation. All right, let's do a field check here at Chile. Let's see if I can pull up my flight plan. Where'd it go here? Where's my... I've lost my flight plan. Here it is. So I don't need this one. I just need this one. Chile. 1514, 9 tons. So let's see here. Chile, 1514, 9 tons. So we have a little bit more fuel than planned. We have a little less fuel than planned, actually. We should have 9.2 at Chile. We got about 9. So we're a little bit under on the fuel. We'll have to kind of keep an eye on that, make sure that does not get any worse. Let's see here, 15. So I'm just going to quickly push these through here. Try and do this math as quickly as I can while everyone's watching me here. 16, 29. And just try and... make sure that we're going to make it at least reasonably on time. If we fall behind on the fuel, it's not the end of the world. You talk about Joe being out of touch, but really, like, most of the ruling class in America, as it were, is so completely out of touch with what it's like to be. And Canada's the same way too. So many of the people who are so many of the politicians, it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on, they're so far removed from the realities of modern life. And just to think of one in particular, I was watching The Daily Show the other day, and they were all, Congress was all in an uproar about they're coming to take your gas stoves. And it's like, all that happened was there was a higher efficiency standard rolled out for gas stoves that pretty much 95% of the gas stoves on the market currently meet anyways. Nobody's coming to your house to rip out the gas stoves, but it just the rhetoric was hilarious in that, yeah, like, this is, in the grand scheme of things, this is not a problem. This is not an issue that you need to be dealing with. There's so much bigger issues in the world that you need to be dealing with, and whether or not someone's increasing the efficiency requirement for a gas stove. But it's funny sometimes the Turkey GB, hello, how's things? Doing Edmonton ATC later today. I am not going to be doing probably I might do some ATC tonight, actually. I might do some after like 0 after 01 Zulu tonight, I might get online and do some ATC. I haven't done much lately. I know I haven't been online much lately. Last week was a busy week. We had my daughter's birthday, which took quite a bit of time preparing for. We had to kind of clean up our house. We kind of used it as an opportunity to both clean the house and just sort of do the spring cleaning anyways. Clean some stuff out, kind of get the garden ready a little bit, get the patio furniture out, clean up the barbecue, all that kind of stuff. So last week was an exhausting week by the time all was said and done. I didn't go to work, but boy, I was exhausted by the end of the week. Which was one of the reasons why I didn't stream either. I just didn't really have the time for it. I'm hoping that this week is going to be a little bit easier. But yeah, I haven't had much time online flying, controlling anything in the last week or so. And last month was a crazy month. So this month's a little bit more relaxed now that, especially this birthday was kind of the one big thing, ordeal, not ordeal, that's not, but the one big deal anyways for the month. So now that that's kind of come and gone, yeah, I plan to be online a fair bit more. I might do, if you're going to be around after 01 Zulu, maybe I will log on and do some Edmonton ATC. Okay, yeah. Yeah, if it's 2 a.m. for you, then it might be late. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about that. It is Tuesday, isn't it? So it would be there at Edmonton tonight. I like participating in those. It's nice to kind of participate and be one of many people in the wheel. It's a little bit boring as a stream sometimes, but it's kind of fun to be one of multiple controllers online, and you get the real handoffs. Sometimes when you're doing everything, it's fun, but at the same time, it's very unrealistic when I'm doing everything from handing out delivery clearances on the ground all the way up to controlling approaches at an airport 200 miles away as well. You're trying to coordinate all these things, so it's kind of nice to have these reduced scopes of control, and I was really kind of enjoying that yesterday. I did do a flight last night just to check and make sure my sim still works, because I hadn't done one in about a week, and I flew out of Montreal, and there was literally every controller right up. There was a delivery controller, ground controller, tower controller, a departure controller. I didn't talk to the center controller because I was handed directly off to Unicom to the south of Montreal, but that was kind of fun to have the multiple controllers online and just deal with each one for a small bit. Montreal was very quiet, unfortunately, so I was not getting a lot of I wasn't hearing a whole lot of stuff on frequency, and each person was not doing a whole lot. And that's the only trouble with being online with multiple people, is when you're on by yourself, controlling a whole sector by yourself, often it keeps you busy enough that it's very entertaining. But I guess the flip side of that is that if you are controlling a small scope of area, but there's a whole group of you online, you can chat in the background. And I have a feeling that's probably what was happening. There's a lot of chatting going on, I'm sure, in the background on the TeamSpeak service and whatnot. And I kind of like that idea as well. So I don't know if I'll be in Edmonton tonight. I almost like when there are those events happening, I almost like to move one FIR over and just kind of provide the peripheral service. So like during Edmonton's Tuesday night, I kind of like to go on to Winnipeg and Vancouver, because I find it helps with the service overall. Not everyone's going to want to fly between airports within the Edmonton FIR. Some people are going to come from outside, so I find that like taking that peripheral traffic and channeling it, and not having, and the nice thing is, like, you know, doing the radar contact and everything, and not having to give the guy who's running an event to have to identify everybody and ping everybody and ask everybody to contact me, because it still is a bit of an epidemic sometimes in this network. The other night I had one airplane I had to get rid of, and it's not that I want to get rid of them, it's that I want them to call me. If you're flying on this network and you're flying through my airspace for 30 to 45 minutes, I think you should be talking. Or you're required to be talking, but like, what's the point of being on the network if you're not going to talk to anybody when the controllers do come online? Because that just frustrates the controllers too. When you get multiple people flying through your airspace not talking to you, and I'm very forgiving when I first hop on. You know, the first half an hour I'm on shift on the scope, I don't care if nobody answers me for that first half hour, because yeah, okay, you know, there was nobody online. You were sailing, you went up to go use the bathroom, make lunch, clean your room, whatever, you know. I get it. If there's nobody to talk to, this is pretty boring right here. Like, honestly, this is a very understimulating job at a lot of the time. So I get why people walk away from it. But walking away from it, you can't just leave it unmonitored if you're on the network. And that's one of my big things. That's one of my big pet pieces. You see that a lot. You see people offline for extended periods of time. And I'm not talking like half an hour. I'm talking like sometimes 3 hours. Like, Edmonton is one of the worst for seeing that, just because it's such a large airspace. It can take 6 hours to fly from one end of Edmonton to the other. So I could have an airplane in my airspace when I log on. 3 hours later when I log off, he's still there and hasn't called me at all. It's one thing if you're going to go do something. I'm fine with that, you know, or even, you know, go grab a meal or whatever. But monitor your computer. Come and pop your head in the room and look at it every couple of minutes and see if somebody's trying to contact you. Or I have the remote desktop app on my phone that, like, if I'm out of this room, you know, making a meal, doing whatever, cleaning the house, folding laundry, anything like that, I've got the remote app. Every 5 to 10 minutes, I'll pop it up, just look at it, just make sure nobody's trying to call me, and I'll come down here probably about every half an hour, 45 minutes, just make sure the plane's still flying. Make sure that we haven't had an emergency, the autopilot hasn't kicked off, because I've had that happen sometimes where I'm flying, and then I went into another room, I did something, I come back and the autopilot kicked off, and the airplane just did a slow, gentle turn, and we're 45 miles off course, and we're, you know, 4,000 feet above our cleared altitude, or you know, our planned cruise altitude, or whatever. You're coming close to a stall because the autopilot was off for the last 30 minutes, and nobody noticed because you weren't here. So I get why people step away from the airplane, but it's frustrating to watch. I used to fly there all the time every Tuesday. FedEx 57 used to see you do it online a lot, doing center. I like center just because it's big, it's overview, but I like the local positions too. The local positions are some of the more fun positions, like when you can just bring up one view on your scope. Because if you've watched my live streams, you see, like, I'm sitting there hitting the F7 key, which is the key that hops to the next view of your scope, and I'm constantly hitting that to scan everything, because I need to scan the ground in Toronto, I need to scan the departure boxes in Toronto, then I need to scan the overall center, then I need to scan the Ottawa airport, and I'm constantly hitting this F7 button. Sometimes it's so nice when you do a position where you just have one thing on your scope and that's all you're focused on. The other day I did Toronto arrival for, well, it was about 45 minutes. My internet would not, it wasn't my internet in that case. In that case, my computer kept on losing its connection to the internet for some reason. I managed to fix it now, but it was kind of nice. I was just, for that 45 minutes, I was just focused on arrival and departure. There was a tower controller online, there was a center controller online. I was just a cog in the wheel, and I just had this one spot on the scope. This is me. This is my area of control, and that's it. I didn't have to move the scope, I didn't have to zoom the scope, I didn't have to flip between 17 different screens. It's just one spot on the scope. Sometimes that's really nice. Like, I enjoy doing center, and I enjoy providing good service to a large area, but at the same time, and sometimes it is just so nice to focus on one job and do it really well, because I think I said that before, that when your attention is diluted across such a large area, like the Edmonton FIR especially, huge, it's hard to do your job well all the time everywhere, because there's just so many different requirements. And so I've done poor jobs of vectoring people onto final, and I've gotten distracted by someone else asking for a clearance or something. I come back and, like, all of a sudden they've gone through final. I'm like, oh shoot, I got to give you the turn on to final. I got distracted. So I think arrival and departure is one of the most fun positions, because there's a lot of room for creativity in that position, while still being small enough and focused enough. One of my favorite positions to do. I really enjoy doing also tower. If I'm doing all the positions, tower by itself is usually a pretty boring position, but if you're doing tower down, if you're doing tower ground and delivery, that can be a lot of fun. Yeah, and if it gets busy, keeps you on your toes. Apron 2 is also, in Toronto, is a really fun position of itself, because it's a very creative problem-solving type of position. Once you get out of the apron onto the taxiways, everything's fairly systematic. You're very this way, that way, and the way VATSIM works, you don't do a lot of the work of the real-world ground controllers. The real-world ground controllers don't just deal with aircraft that are taxiing for departure and taxiing in from after landing. They also deal with aircraft being towed around from gate to gate. They deal with emergency vehicles, potentially service vehicles, electrical vehicles, lots and lots of different stuff. Airplanes are just a fraction of the duties that they perform in the real world, and that's what kind of makes it interesting, is the unusual stuff. The airplanes taxiing to and from departure, it's the same route every time. It gets very quickly very repetitive. The other thing that also we don't do on VATSIM that happens in the real world that makes life much more difficult is things like gate holds and ground delay programs. We do ground delay programs sometimes on VATSIM. We do that. But gate holds, your gate's not available. I have to park you somewhere until your gate becomes available. There's an airplane on your gate. We don't usually have enough traffic for that. and people don't want to wait around for that. But in the real world, that's a huge thing, and especially if you've had bad weather roll through. If you had a thunderstorm or something roll through an airport and everything ground to a halt for half an hour, 45 minutes, all of a sudden everything's 45 minutes behind, but airplanes kept on, coming in. All of a sudden, you've got this huge backlog of airplanes that need gates. You've got to find places to park all these airplanes and call them up one at a time and say, okay, you're ready to taxi the gate. And there is, yeah. I don't know that there is any way that you could really simulate that, and who really wants to simulate that part anyways, honestly. Like, I get it. I totally get it. That's, who wants to simulate, oh, my gate's not available. I got to sit on the ground for the next 45 minutes with one engine running, waiting for my gate to become available. Who wants to do that part of the flying career? That is, that's not something I think anybody really wants to simulate. But that is something that adds a lot of complexity and interest to the ground controller job. So because of the way VATSIM is, and it's everything works pretty much properly all the time, and we don't have any of these non-pilot jobs. We don't have any of the tugs towing aircraft around. We don't have any of the maintenance vehicles and emergency vehicles moving around on the taxiways. That the ground controller job is very straightforward on VATSIM. The ground controller job is actually quite boring most of the time on VATSIM. The only time it really becomes interesting is when you get like runway crossings and unusual configurations. De-icing is the only other thing that really kind of can throw a real wrench in the normal flow of traffic. Otherwise, and the other thing that can also make the ground controller position more interesting is construction. If you adhere to the construction NOTAMs and you try to work around taxiway closures, and all of a sudden things become non-standard. That's why I like the NOTAMs. A lot of guys are like, I don't ever simulate the NOTAMs. It's everything's open all the time. Like, that's the interesting part. That's the fun part. Is let's work the problem around these restrictions that normally don't exist, but that have now changed the plan for me. Normally I just you're departing runway 23 in Toronto. It's taxi Alpha Hotel. Boom, done. And 95% of your taxi clearances are the same, and so there's very little interest there. So the ground controller position can become very boring in its repetitive nature, and the same with the tower position. If you're at a major international airport where there's not guys doing circuits, it's just clear to land, clear to take off, clear to land, clear to take off. Unless unless you've got a lot of unless you've got a mixed mode operation where you get departures and arrivals on the same runway, you got to try and time stuff. Otherwise, that becomes a very boring position as well. It can be. There's a lot to think about, and it's an important job. But the way we run it on VATSIM, because everything is so perfect all the time, it can be a very boring position. So I do agree. Like, departure and arrival tend to be the first interesting positions. Tower can be interesting if you're doing everything else and it's enough to really keep you busy. What I'd like to see is taxiing done at Heathrow and Gatwick where they tell you to taxi via the blue line or the green line to Alpha 1 for the runway. You follow the blue or whatever color line on the taxiway. That would be interesting, and it's probably doable on VATSIM. I think it all comes down to questions of scenery, and that is one of the more interesting quirks of VATSIM, is trying to deal with people who have multiple different versions of your scenery, especially places where the scenery has changed a lot. And Chicago was one of those examples recently. Like the entire network of taxiways was completely reconfigured over the last 5 to 8 years. So depending on whether you had new scenery or old scenery, taxi clearance that was valid for one guy wasn't valid for the next. That's a huge challenge in and of itself, is trying to deal with people who have different versions of the scenery. Chicago has kind of stabilized now, and especially with most people in a newer sim, I think it works again. But for a while there, being a controller in Chicago, I can only imagine, but it must have been a nightmare because there was such a change. Montreal's kind of going through that now. There's quite a few changes that have come through Montreal recently that have substantially changed it, and they're changing a lot of the taxiway configurations. They're adding new taxiways in Montreal. That's going to make it a little bit difficult. Chicago's a nightmare, even if everyone's on the same chart with the same scenery, let alone when it's but everyone's got different scenery. I'm trying to think of other airports that have had major reconfigurations. It hasn't been too often that you get like 30 or 40% of the taxiways at the airport completely reconfigured and re-changed. And Chicago's been just absolutely a nightmare like that. I'm trying to think of any other ones that have been like that, but I can't think of too many others that have had that major a project. With the opening of the multiple new runways in Chicago and that sort of thing. I'm trying to think of any other airports that suffer from that problem. I can't think of any offhand in North America anyways that suffer from that problem, where there have been a new taxiway added here and there, one or two things, maybe a little rejig. Montreal, like I said, is kind of they're kind of embarking on a big project over the next several years to kind of rebuild the taxiways, make them more efficient to get around the airport. So there are new taxiways, then there's stuff that's changing in Montreal. So that might make the Montreal controllers' jobs a little more interesting. See if I can pull some of it up here. I'm not sure how well it's even indicated on the charts, really. But they are doing a lot of work this year. Yeah, it's not particularly well indicated here. Maybe on the construction charts it might be here. Let me just see if I can. Maybe it has it better on the construction activities, but they are slowly kind of adding new taxiways, like Bravo 2, I think was Bravo. No, I think that was Echo before. Now that's been renamed Bravo 2. Bravo 2 is Bravo 4. But they're also adding new taxiways on the south side here. They're adding a couple of new taxiways. I don't even know what the configuration of the new taxiways is going to be. Just trying to see if they're kind of indicating what the new configurations are going to be. They are widening the holding bay down here, but like minor changes like that, like widening a holding bay, things like that, that's not so bad. You can deal with that. You can work around that if it's in the same location as the old holding bay. But when you go to Chicago, it's like they just completely moved entire taxiways. They made new taxiways. They closed old ones. Like, it just to try and taxi there. Try and follow taxi instructions and hope that your scenery kind of matches. And I imagine the controllers must be just sort of like, we'll just use the taxiways we know everybody has. But yeah, you look at this, like the old runway here that they closed. There used to be a taxiway down. They turned it into taxiway for quite a while. Now you can see like there's a little remnant of it here, but this taxiway is mostly gone. This area right here has been completely changed. This taxiway here that was Bravo. Oh look, they even renamed it here. So Bravo used to be parallel to Alpha all the way around, and all the way around here, and now they've changed that to be uniform. Alpha was the inner parallel taxiway, and it kind of comes here, and now it's gone to like all these taxiways. This whole area here is just a disaster, just a complete and total disaster of rejigged taxiways. But even up here where they were building this new runway, you know, depending on which scenery version you got there. Houston. Taxiways of double lettered nightmare told getting told where to go. Yeah, there's another one that could potentially. That's another complicated airport too. Absolutely, all these double lettered taxiways in Houston. Not Hobby. Intercontinental. So what I'm looking for here. That's another one that they do have standard taxi routes published, but I think part of the thing with VATSIM too is you kind of have to assume. You have to kind of assume the worst about pilots in that they don't know a lot of this stuff exists. And that's another problem. That's another problem you have with VATSIM, and it's a problem, but there's not much you can do about it. It's an amateur hobby. Even the controllers are not, you know, they don't know everything. They don't know all the routes very well. They haven't read every single chart, and the average pilot is not gonna. The average pilot might look at this. They're not going to be looking at. Oh shoot, I lost it. But they're not going to be looking at this list of standard taxi routes. If you tell them the taxi standard route alpha, they'll be like, what? And you have to explain yourself. So sometimes it's easier to not even worry about explaining yourself and to just simply tell them what you want them to do. And I found that like more and more, it depends on the controllers, but I find a lot of VATSIM controllers will do that. There'll be a SID. Last stream when we left New York, there was a published SID. And the guy gave us the SID, but then he also gave us departure instructions that matched the SID. And why? Because he assumes that at least 30% of VATSIM pilots will not actually read the SID and will not actually follow the SID, and he needs him to make the turn. I think it's like a departure off 4 left and it's a right turn to 090. I think it's 099 is what's published on the SID. And he said, yeah, after departure, fly heading 100, which is basically the same thing as a SID. But why are they reissuing the SID? Because they know that 30% of people will not follow it. In Toronto, it's horrendous the number of people that will not follow the SID because they're just like, oh, I see a discontinuity, I have to delete it immediately. And because I was cleared for the SID, it's like, well, did you read the SID chart? Because if you read the SID chart, it's not just about putting something in your FMS. It's about reading the chart and understanding what the chart says. That's the important part. It's not what it actually is in your FMS. The FMS is there to help the SID, not the other way around. Even just to look at something simple like the Aconi 3 here, but you got to wonder, like, how many people take off and at 520 feet, they don't fly heading 350. They go direct to Coney. But what does it say? if I can move this over. Climb heading 101 to 520, then climbing left turn heading 350, or as assigned by ATC for vectors to a Coney, then on track 320 to Nepali. So that's what you're supposed to do. This is the SID right here, not what's in the box, but this is the SID right here. And the number of people that don't fly what's there, they say, oh, well, you know, I was cleared for a SID, ergo I have to delete any and all discons I see. Yeah. It's frustrating. It's frustrating as a controller because most of the time it's not a big deal, but every once in a while you'll get somebody who will turn immediately, and they'll have taken off right beyond somebody else who's doing the correct thing and not turning right away, and all of a sudden now they're turned on a collision course because this guy did not do what he was supposed to do. So I want people to come, and I want them to fly, and I want them to have fun and not be overly stressed about it, but I want you to also learn from it too and know what you're doing, because we do set the bar pretty high on VATSIM. We do expect people to try and operate their aircraft realistically, professionally, per the procedures. I mean, that's part of the reason I think why people come on VATSIM in the first place, is because they want to follow the procedures. They want to be part of the procedures, but it's important. There's a lot of stuff. And yeah. See a lot of people getting confused at Heathrow with holding point names within the taxiways and the links. The amount of people that get lost is fun. Yeah, Heathrow is a confusing airport, and the way it's named with all these holding points too, I find that it's very confusing sometimes. Sure, 10-9 Bravo, let's have a look at it. But I tend to find that, like Heathrow, the way it's laid out, and all these holding points that have names and everything, it can be very confusing. You got all these, and then each link doesn't even have a taxiway name, it's just got a link name, which is weird. Why wouldn't you just give it a taxiway name? I find it weird when we try to avoid naming taxiways. Why not just name all the taxiways? Make it easy on everybody. There was a incident in Paris with a 330 that went off the side of a taxiway because the taxiway was in two places. I think it was in Paris. What is Paris? LFPG? Yeah. I'm not sure if it's Charles de Gaulle or not, but I'm not even 100% sure. I don't know if it was Charles de Gaulle. I feel like it was in Paris somewhere. Let's see here. I'm not sure if it was Charles de Gaulle or if it was somewhere else. And I'm trying to figure this out. I don't think it was here. I feel like it was... I don't know. I'm not sure. But anyways, there was a case... where the crew was cleared to taxi on a taxiway, but the taxiway had two kind of parts to it, so they went down the wrong one. Then they tried to make a turn that was too sharp for their aircraft. It was an A330, it's a big long airplane. No, it wasn't. No, not. I don't even know. But I'll show kind of a Canadian version of it. It's not terrible, but it kind of it exemplifies a little bit the problem area here. And I'm not sure if this will have it. Yeah, it kind of shows a little bit. Doesn't really show it well, but anyways, it's really not terrible here. But this is Calgary, and so just to kind of give you an idea, like this is Gulf Taxiway here, and so Gulf Taxiway kind of comes up here, and it makes a 45-degree. But the way it's actually in the real world here, if I can maybe draw some lines here. So there's this taxiway, there's this taxiway, but then there's also this taxiway, right? Golf and Juliet meet, but like there's actually even like a little island in the middle. I don't know how well you can see that, but that's kind of what it looks like in the real world. So Golf is this, but it's also this, but it's like two different sides. So in the particular case of this 330, it was a configuration somewhat like this. The gap was a little bit bigger. There was actually grass in the middle here, and so they were cleared to taxi. It wasn't actually here in Calgary. It was somewhere else in Europe. I can't remember where it was, but they were cleared to taxi Golf Juliet, and so they were looking at the chart, and they took the straight one, they didn't realize that they were supposed to take this curving part was also part of the same taxiway. So they thought they had to go Golf and then make a 9-degree turn onto Juliet. And what they ended up doing was this turn was too sharp to make. This 9-degree turn was too sharp, and they dropped their wheels on the grass on the inside of the turn. And everyone kind of looked at it and said, well, you know, they weren't wrong in the route they took. Yes, I mean, obviously they shouldn't have gone off the edge of the taxiway, but the way the taxiway is labeled, they actually followed the authorized route. So ATC or the airport itself had some fault in this because of the design of this taxiway was not, it was ambiguous. You could kind of go either way. And so they kind of missed the fact that this was also considered Golf. And so they thought they had to go this way and make a 9-degree turn. So Orly, maybe it was Orly. What's Orly? Oh, I don't even know what Orly is. Maybe, can I just type in Orly? I'm so used to just typing in the ICAOs. It might not have been Paris. It might have been somewhere else, in all honesty. I just remember it was somewhere in Europe. And they did end up renaming the taxiway after that. Yeah, it could have... Yeah, I don't think it was this, but it would be a configuration just like this right here, where you're on Whiskey 1. Whiskey 1 goes this way. Lima 44 is here. This would also be considered Whiskey 1 if you're going that way. And so the crew, not knowing that, didn't go this way around the nice gentle curve. They didn't realize that that was Whiskey 1, so they thought they had to follow Whiskey 1 to where Lima 44 was. And so they went this way, and then in their large A330, they tried to make this 9-degree turn, and of course they dropped the wheels in the grass right there on the inside of the corner. I don't know if it was Orly or not. I really don't remember. But yeah, everything needs to have a label and needs to be clear what you mean. And if there's a chance for ambiguity, the first guy may not make that mistake, and the 10th guy and the 50th guy. But if the 100th guy makes that mistake, or the 100th person, I shouldn't say guy, the 100th person makes that mistake, if there's ambiguity there, yeah, that could be the one that leads to bad consequences. There should be very little ambiguity in this business, and if there is ambiguity, it should be clarified immediately. Yeah, I'm not sure which one it was, in all honesty. I can't remember, but I just remember reading this one and just looking at this and just like, I felt these guys, because I've seen that kind of thing before. Like I said, like in Calgary, it's a little bit confusing there where Golf is. There's multiple places where that happens, where there's little links of taxiways that are unlabeled, but they're long enough that it feels like it should have its own label, and that feels like I'm not authorized to taxi on that because I didn't hear the name of that, not realizing that both ways are the same taxiway. Yeah, anyways. All right, how are we doing here? I'm just having a look, see here. Let's have a look at our fuel prediction for landing. So we're looking at 1730 for landing now. So I don't know what happened here, but we were originally supposed to be early, and now I think we're going to be late. I've lost what my arrival time was scheduled to be here. I put it in the Discord, so let me just look real quick here. I figured it out yesterday. I didn't write it down. I actually just put it in the Discord. So let's see what my target, my target scheduled arrival time is 17:16 Zulu. Well, that's not going to happen. That doesn't sound right, because this is supposed to be like a 3-hour and 7-minute flight or something. Hold on. Let's have a look at Pilot's Life here. So scheduled is 9:01 to 12:17. No, it shouldn't be 16 Zulu. It should be 17:16 Zulu. It should be 17:36 Zulu. There we go. I think I thought the takeoff time, so that's okay. Yeah, either way, that's going to be really tight to get to the gate on time, 17:36. We'll see. Any VATSIM ATC yet while I'm over on this computer? Ooh, there's an Orlando arrival controller. Oh, how nice. How very nice. Now, we are still, so let's see here, 1 hour and 45 minutes away. I would give them about 50-50 chance of still being there when I get there. But what I am going to do right now is I'm going to grab their arrival ATIS, just so I have something to look at and plan on later. So the arrival information, Alpha, winds are 226 and 15, 10 miles, fuel 2000, scatter 2800, 30 degrees, 2994, simultaneous approaches to parallel runways, visual approaches to runways 18 right and 17 left in use. So just kind of thinking ahead here. Well, you brief the taxi before when you're on the ground, but at the same time, you don't want to brief it too extensively because you don't want to have expectation bias about what your taxi clearance is. And because it happens a lot. Expectation bias. There was a period of time where they said, we don't want you to brief a taxi route. And the reason we don't want you to brief a taxi route is because the second you brief a taxi route, that's the only taxi route you're going to hear ATC clear you for. And you kind of have some certain expectations, but you take Toronto as a perfectly typical example. Normally, taxiing out for runway 23 from any terminal, it's going to be taxi Alpha Hotel. Pretty straightforward. So you brief that. And then you call up ATC, yeah, we're holding short of Alpha Kilo. They're like, Taxi Bravo Hotel. And you're like, okay, Taxi Bravo Hotel. And because you think Alpha, you just go up Alpha Hotel. You hear it. You may even read it back correctly, but your expectation bias is there. So there tends to be, there's been a little bit of a push lately against not really extensively pre-briefing taxi routes because taxi routes can change. What if there's construction on Alpha, so you got to go Bravo? What if you have a wheels up time? So, okay, we're going to take you out Bravo 1 up to 33, hold short of hotel. I always end up going to Cargo West. But yeah, even getting to Cargo West, like there's multiple ways you could get there. There's expectation bias. Yeah, expectation bias can be a real enemy, and it's probably your biggest enemy at the airports you're most familiar with, where you're probably most likely you think you know what you're going to get ahead of time. I tend to quickly kind of look at it and say, I think we're going to get this route, but I really kind of preface it with the I think to try and mitigate that expectation bias. It might get in, but I'm still going to look at it, I'm going to write it down, I'm going to trace it on the map with my finger when I actually get it to make sure it makes sense to me. Because that's the trouble with pre-briefing the taxi route, especially briefing it like before you're actually given them the routing. And things change. Things change dynamically as you're taxiing. So what happens when the route you're expecting changes? Like, I'm going to go to Orlando. If we land 17 left, I'm going to expect a taxi. Foxtrot, Echo, Charlie, maybe Bravo 5 to get to Airside 1 because the south terminal doesn't exist in my scenery yet. But the second I brief that, I now have this huge expectation bias. If he gives me like Foxtrot, Golf, Juliet or something, am I going to do that? Am I going to just carry on trucking along with what I think I should be getting? So there's a pre-briefing things to a certain point can become dangerous, especially when there's a chance for changes. Somebody else could impose a change on you that you're not expecting, and ATC especially could do that with a taxi routing. They may give you November Juliet across the 17. There's multiple ways to get there for sure. So I'm hesitant to really brief the taxi route ahead of time. I might look at a couple taxi routes. I might also look at what's closed from a taxiway perspective, and actually this would be the ideal time to do that because we're in a low area of vulnerability while we're in cruise. Let's just have a quick look at these NOTAMs. Just since I have it up here, let's have a look at the NOTAMs in Orlando because I saw a bunch of taxiway stuff here. Centerline markings obscured. I'm not too worried about markings obscured since that probably won't make it in the sim anyways. Adjacent construction, markings not standard. Lighted barricade construction, lighted barricaded, not standard. I don't see any actual closed taxiways. Wow, cool, everything's open. All right, Tricky GB, well, it was nice talking to you. Hope you enjoyed the rest of your day, and I will be online for about 2 more hours tonight. I don't know 100%. I probably will go do some ATC because I haven't done any for a while, so I got a little hankering for it. But yeah, thank you very much for tuning in, and hopefully we'll catch you again later. Yeah, I don't see anything that really affects us. I know the JetBlue used to park on the west side of Airside 1 here. These gates, kind of gates 1 through like 11, I think. So we'll pick a gate at random from that list because I'm not... the Taxi2Gate has the new south terminal, but I don't have the Taxi2Gate scenery, so I've just got the Microsoft scenery, which is only the 4 airsides are open. I think they have like kind of construction going on down here. They had like some basic buildings, but there's no gates or anything actually in the default scenery. So we're going to go up to Airside 1. I know it's not quite totally correct, but it makes more sense to me to try and actually get to a gate that exists in the sim. I was on the fence about buying that Taxi2Gate, but I started reading all these reviews about all this stuff that wasn't updated, that wasn't proper. It's just like, I just don't really believe in this here. I don't think it's going to be... Yeah, I don't think I'm going to get my money's worth out of it, I guess. That's one way to look at it. Alright, so here we are, coming through, yeah, coming up the outside of the Bahamas here. I'll be there in just over an hour and a bit here, so yeah. If you guys got anything else you want to talk about, I kind of was looking around and there wasn't all that much news that I saw really on the flight sim front. It seems like the next sim update keeps getting delayed. That's about it, though. I don't see too much else. You know, a couple airports published here and there. There was an article about Say Intentions adding a taxiway editor to allow and partnering with Navigraph to have better taxi instructions, which is great. For the price that they're charging, though, like $30 a month for ATC service. VATSIM offers you the same thing for free. There's not always a controller online, but $30 a month for ATC services, like if you were even $10 a month, that's the level where I'm like, maybe it's worthwhile. Maybe it's worthwhile. And as someone who tries to use real-world VATSIM, real people on VATSIM as much as possible, I would tend to think that, like, for me, all these AI ATC systems are just not going to be worth it. But I really wonder about the long-term viability of these things, just because the complexity, the amount of back-end infrastructure you need to maintain, and like I said, like $30 a month, that's $360 a year. That's a lot of money to be paying for back-end ATC. You know, and I'm not saying that AI is or should be cheap. I'm just, is that value for the money? $30 a month. I don't think that's value for the money. And I know the Beyond ATC's kind of got a different pricing model where it's you know, it's per the amount you use. But again, the amount, I think they said like $30, it lasts you like 20 or 30 flights. So I'd probably be paying about the same amount. I forget what they said. It had to be something along that line. That's not what I'm trying to open. Beyond ATC, what I really want is pricing. Now download it here, but how do I love it when websites are becoming so hard to navigate again now, because it's all about making it scrollable for people on phones. It's like you can't even find information you're looking for anymore. Pricing, like pricing should be like a big link somewhere. So $30 up front. That's not an unreasonable price. About an hour of speech for free, and then $10 for another 15 to 20 flights. So for me, I would be definitely probably paying that every month. Let's see here. Let's ask SimBrief how often I go flying here. They go to the dispatch system, and let's see here. Let's see my dispatch history. So I'm just going to count the number of flights I've done in, let's say, the last 30 days. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Some of these are doubles, I think, too. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So yeah, that's actually in about 2 weeks. I've done about 15 or 16 flights. So I would be looking at paying this about twice a month probably to get to do this. I feel like that's, is it fair value? It's probably a reasonably fair value, and I do kind of think that is a nice way to do it, so that, you know, people don't feel obligated to fly. Oh, well, I haven't flown more than twice this month. I haven't got my money's worth out of this. I feel like this is probably a better. I feel like this is probably a better pricing structure, especially for someone who maybe flies a little bit less often. $30 a month, that's a lot, and there's a lot to it, but still, like, just because that's on top of everything else. That's not your only cost for the hobby. That's just to add voice ATC to the hobby. You know, Navigraph is $120 a year now. What other recurring costs? I don't have, in all honesty, I don't have too many other recurring costs if you don't count the cost of the internet, which I would pay for regardless of what I do, because everyone needs internet access at home in this day and age. You know, hydro using the computer and things like that. There are recurring monthly costs, but there are not a whole lot of recurring monthly costs. Most of the costs are kind of one-off, use it once and be done with it kind of costs, which is fine. But then you do get those couple, and is it worth it for that? I feel like the price structure is a little bit high still, and even if it worked ideally, it's still on the high side. Just to add ATC to the system, that's not even anything else. That's just ATC. If you want charts, that's another $120 a year. It's about $10 a month for Navigraph. That's not an unreasonable price. I think Navigraph, I will always argue, brings pretty good value. I think theirs is pretty worthwhile. $30 a month for Beyond ATC. I don't know. I'd be willing. I'm curious to know if you guys have opinions about that. But to me, that price seems steep. I don't know if it's going to be worth that. If it was, like I said, if it was about $10 a month, I think it would probably be pretty reasonable. And for me, of course, because I would fly with VATSIM controllers whenever I could, I would not get near the use out of it that a lot of other people would. I just feel like it is a hefty price tag to pay. I don't know if you're getting totally your money's worth. I just again, I don't know how much I believe in this whole AI revolution. Big tech is trying to sell you something, and you got to ask yourself, like, are the benefits really worth it? Should you really trust the salesman to tell you the truth about what the real use cases are, what the dangers are? Do you really trust the salesman to tell you what the dangers of their product are? Probably not. You know, you call up a weed control company, and you tell them, you ask them, hey, how much do you charge to come and fertilize my property and control the weeds on my property? X number of dollars. Okay, how safe is it? Oh, it's safe. 100% it's safe. Can you show me some data to back that up? Can you show me some data to back up what you're saying? Because, like, you're interested in making the sale. Like, there's a huge conflict of interest there. Like, if you say it's unsafe, then you may not get the sale. So I've been kind of looking at these companies for the last little while, because we do have a pretty big weed problem. But I have kids, I have dogs. I want to know, like, what are the safety ramifications of these products. Like, I refuse to ever use Roundup, because Roundup seems to have a lot of issues, and and they sell it by the ton at the home improvement stores. Just cases upon cases of it. But I certainly have never used it on my property, because I don't have a lot of faith in that manufacturer, and so you have to ask the same questions about these companies. And so even big tech, you say, what is AI really worth? All you're doing a lot of salesmanship on AI, but that's because you want to make some money off it at the back end. So how about we ask some people who don't have that vested interest what the real risks are, instead of trusting you. Oh, you just say, trust me, it's going to be great. I don't know if I trust you. Chokery471 says, I think Navigraph's pricing isn't reasonable. Why do you feel that way? Do you feel it's too pricey? I was a little disappointed. I will admit, I was a little disappointed when they got rid of the monthly subscription model for the nav data, and you didn't have to have charts. I didn't used to have charts, because I could get charts from work. So I used to just subscribe just to the nav data, and I kind of like that model. I'm a little disappointed that they've reduced the options on that, for sure. I will say this, though, that I think Navigraph does create good value for their product. They're constantly improving. So it's $15 a month or $110 a year, whatever it works out to. But that's it. That's the only option they have now, is just the unlimited plan. They don't have the smaller plans where it's just charts or just nav data, and that's a little disappointing. I do agree. $5 a month, maybe $5 per month. And that I will say I was a little disappointed when they kind of went with that. For this price, I think what you get is a good deal, but I think you're right. I think they should go back to having multiple options. They should have a smaller option for the people that just want the nav data. If you don't want the charts, if you just want the nav data to update your FMSs, but you don't want to have the charts, you'll find them somewhere else. You have access to them somewhere else. I kind of agree with that. I will agree. Yeah. So let me ask you then, would you think that, do you think that what they charge for all of these features combined is reasonable, but you just would rather not have all the features, is basically what you're saying? And I can get behind that. I can understand that. They used to have different tiers, and I think that was very reasonable. I don't know if they did this just to simplify their billing, or if they did it just to capture more people into a higher cost structure. It's probably part of the reason. But yeah, I can understand that. I will say that I think for the price they charge, you definitely do get good value. The charts, the fact that it's integrated on so many different platforms, they're constantly improving it. They just added this the other day now, and I'm not sure if it's available on this version. I don't think it's on the in-sim version, at least maybe not yet. But if I go to my charts.navigraph.com here, they just added some more VFR details in this new version that just got launched here. So now you can look at this now, and you can see like all the different forested, built-up areas. There's better data for all these forested areas versus the non-forested, the Great Plains and everything, or the cities, the built-up areas. That data has been improved, so they are constantly improving too. I will say this: like, they do not sit on their laurels and just rake in the money for the same product. There's a very active development cycle. That's another reason why I do believe they provide good value for the money. Is they do have an active development cycle. They are adding constant improvements. This ability to not that, but the ability to draw on your charts was a great feature. Was a great add. If I can just pull up any chart, just show me a chart, please. Just show me a bloody chart. But the fact that you can draw on it and do whatever you want, you can make smiley faces or whatever you want, that was a nice feature to add. It's not perfect, it's not ideal, but it definitely works. Get rid of it nice and quickly. Having the movie map stuff, like yeah, I will agree. It is a steep price for entry for sure. I think for what you get, it's a good deal. Certainly more than Taxi2Gate's airport. I feel like without the support and the follow-up, their airport is not a good value at this point in time. You're not getting a good amount of value for the money you're paying. And I feel the same thing for the AI ATCs right now. I feel like they're on the cusp, and if they can find a way to lower the price of their business model, then might be more reasonable. But for what they're kind of thinking to charge right now, maybe there are some people, or I imagine there are people who are not happy about being on VATSIM that would love that there are issues on VATSIM and would love to have some realistic ATC, and obviously that the sim does not provide that. So I can see the business model for it, but just to me, I don't see the value. Definitely with the Beyond ATC and the say intentions, I don't see the value there yet for it. And not that I don't see the value, I think it's priced too high. And just to circle back to another one that, because there are some recurring cost subscription services in this business. The one that never kind of saw the light of day yet was PMDG's Global Flight Ops. And again, what is that worth? That was one that I questioned that one. I still question that one. I still think about it from time to time. What is their service worth? And what are they going to charge for it? And I could see $10 a month, and I think $10 a month would be reasonable. Depends on the amount of level of options that they provide, but I think for what they're trying to do, I think $10 a month would be very reasonable. There has to be some price, because there is obviously a huge cost of running server infrastructure, diluted among a bunch of people, but there is still a cost. I understand that. I think PMDG often tends to overprice somewhat, so I was curious to see what they were going to charge and what kind of traction they would get, because at $10 a month, I think that's kind of like a very reasonable entry level. Anything much above that, you really have to question the value you're getting. $10 a month, I can probably part with $10 a month pretty easily without too much issue if I think it's going to provide some interest and some fun. But yeah, and that was what I was thinking. And if they were in the neighborhood of $6 to $7 a month even, I think PMDG would have a winner with Global Flight Ops. But if you're talking, like, again, up to the $20 to $30 a month range, start multiplying that by 12 and look at how much you're paying per year for that. That's getting steep. That's definitely getting steep. There's certain things that are worth it, but that's probably not going to be one of them. All right, how are we doing here? So we got about an hour and a half to go here. I'm just thinking about taking a short little break here. My coffee cup is empty, unfortunately, so it kind of needs a refill there. My coffee cup is empty, but my bladder is full. What a strange coincidence. I don't know if they're related at all, but maybe they're related. But yeah, I'm feeling like I'm just going to step away for a couple minutes here, just refill my coffee, and yeah, make sure the dogs are okay up there. I think that they may need to use the facilities as well. I may need to go outside for a few minutes. But yeah, and I'm thinking about trying to set up a failure on the way into Orlando here, as long as my internet doesn't fail me again, so you guys lose the chance to watch everything that happens again, because that really ticked me off. That left me so frustrated at the end of my last stream. And it doesn't happen so often, but every once in a while when something really goes really sideways on a stream, boy, do I get frustrated with it. And it's funny because like almost anything can happen in the airplane, I'd be like, just deal with it. But when the internet fails, or my streaming software fails, or the sim just crashes halfway through, those are the things that are like really, they get under my skin. And I had a hard time getting past that last one. I really, like, when the internet came back online, I was debating whether or not to put myself back on there, and I said, yeah, I'll log back on, and I'll just sort of apologize for the fact we went offline. And I was just so apathetic towards everything at that point, because it'd been such an interesting stream, and it was a single engine approach and landing, and should have been with ATC through a thunderstorm, or around thunderstorms. And instead, I ended up with sky clear day because, of course, the weather feed failed after like 15 minutes, and no ATC because I had no internet, and I wasn't able to stream it either. It was just like, oh my god, like it was going to be such a fun, interesting arrival, and instead, nothing. That really left me just very bitter about it. I'm still bitter about it. It's been a week and a half, and I'm still bitter about it. Now I keep staring at my modem, looking for that flashing orange light that indicates it's offline. Don't go offline, don't go offline. Anyways, yeah, I'm going to step away for about 10 minutes here just to go and refill my coffee cup, let the dogs out for a minute, and then we'll see about doing something when I get back. I think we'll try and run a failure, because I don't have too much other stuff to talk about, really. There hasn't been too much sim-type news lately, so yeah, I think we'll come back in about 10 minutes. We'll set up a failure, so if you guys have something specifically you want to see me trigger that you know is available in the Fenix, let me know. Otherwise, we will... otherwise, I'll pick something. I kind of have an idea of what I might pick, but I'll pick something otherwise. So I'm going to turn the volume a little bit down, put you on the exterior view for just a few minutes so you can kind of watch the airplane fly, because it is noisy outside. There you go. That's a nice shot already right there. And there's some nice islands in the background. Yeah, I'll be back in about 10 minutes here. Just over 10 minutes, I'll be back by 20 after at the latest. And we'll start setting up some kind of abnormality and maybe then do our arrival into Orlando. But in the meantime, guys, thank you so much for watching. Stick with me. We'll be back in just about 10 minutes. Alright everybody, back with you here, and we are still sailing along. It looks like we're still straight and level. I haven't actually gone back inside yet, so who knows what the first officer has done. Got a lot of faith in here. Even the signs on the side of this airplane here. I wonder if I can do the exterior view here. Nope. The exterior view was somewhere very far away, which does not help me. There it is. Just because I wanted to see what the sign said here. Because I never even noticed like how... HEPA filters on board, fly 5 via SAT. It's a little too... There we go. I just, again, the level of detail some of this stuff here is quite fantastic. You get the, even the decaling here, and I think it's, because it's like multiple different resolutions, you can have really clear decals even if some of the rest of the textures are not quite as clear. Static port, do not plug. It is really quite phenomenal how far you can have some of this stuff go. All right, let's just have a look here. Sitting back in the airplane, I noticed first of all that it says VS0. Mach VS0 nav. So let's just do this. There's Mach all cruise nav. That's a little better. All right, coming up to Sumac here. We're going to be setting up for our arrival into Orlando here soon. Hopefully we have some ATC still online. But before we get, ooh, and even Jacksonville Center came online. So we are going to probably have some ATC for this arrival, which is fantastic. Before we do anything else, though, nobody really said anything about a failure. So I'm going to do something just because it adds a little bit of interest. I was a little disappointed that the last failure, we didn't see it all the way to the ground because, of course, my internet went off. So I'm going to start failing stuff more regularly on this airplane. I could do the random failure. However, I feel like I want to do something a little more interesting. Something. Most of the time when I do a random failure, it ends up being either a FAC reset or the APU doesn't work or something like that. So the question is, do I want to do a... Oh, not that. There we go. Do I want to do a random failure or do I want to actually pick the failure? Kind of want to do a random failure because I just want to be caught off guard. But the trouble is the random failures are kind of, I hate to say it, but mostly they end up very benign. Oh, and here we go. Yeah. All right, so first of all, we are still flying. Mach all cruise nav, autopilot 1, 1FT2, and auto thruster all on. I have control ECAM actions. All right, flight control, ELAC 1 fault, ELAC 1 off then on. And this is what you get almost all the time here in Phoenix for some reason. It likes the ELAC and the FAC faults. Off, 1 1000, 2 1000. 3 1000 on, and it went away. ECAM actions complete, and in this case it is no longer the situation has resolved itself, or the reset has resolved itself, so I don't think a diversion is required at this point. All we would basically do is we wouldn't bother telling ATC, we wouldn't bother telling company. I would elect to continue as long as it's a one-off failure, and just notify maintenance so they can meet us there. They can we'll snag it in the book. They can snag it in the book as reset successfully in flight, and they can take the log page, maybe run a self-test if they want to, and at least we've got a history of it. That's the other thing too. At least we'll have a history that this has happened in the past. I feel like there's some missing, there we go. There are some missing tiles here, and maybe that little spurt all the way back, yeah. That little spurt all the way to San Juan for my drone and back may have messed up the tile loading slightly. All right, that was really not the failure I was looking for. I was looking for something a little more interesting, so let's go ahead and do this. Let's do something hydraulic. I was thinking maybe yellow system. So you can do a reservoir overheat, hydraulic leak. Should we just go straight for the big one, for the big guns, hydraulic leak on the yellow system? And just to keep it interesting for myself, I'm gonna arm it after about 60 seconds. Just because that way it's going to still catch me a little bit off guard here, even in 60 seconds. And this is the kind of thing I kind of like to do now, is I kind of like to set myself failures. When I fly in the Fenix, I'll set myself like an engine failure for 1 hour from now. And by the time 1 hour has elapsed, I don't look at the clock. The key is to not look at the clock so you don't know what time it's coming. So it does catch you off guard. And then there is that startle factor, even though you know you'd set it. An hour, like if I set it up in the pre-flight phase, an hour could be in the climb out, it could be in cruise, it could be just after departure, like depending on how long it takes you to set up a departure. You know, setting up a time like that can end up being a very, what am I trying to say here? You're not setting it for a specific time where you're expecting it, and that's the biggest thing. And I love all the features that they have in the Fenix and the ways you can trigger the failures, but I like a failure that I'm not expecting. And a lot of the times with these ones where I set them for like an hour after, so it's hopefully somewhere during flight, I really have completely forgotten about it by the time an hour rolls around. The key is to not look at the time and not kind of know what time it's coming at, but just to be completely off guard by the whole thing. So let's have a look and see right now if I can pull up an ATIS for Jacksonville. Oh, and there it is. Oh, stuff is happening. All right. I'm just gonna turn this back up just a little bit here because it got a Made it a little quiet. Okay, so yeah, still flying. Mach all cruise nav. Autopilot 1 to 1 FT2 auto thrust. I have control. ECAM actions. Alright, ECAM actions. We have hydraulic yellow reservoir at low level. And I would verify that, yeah, it looks like there is no fluid left in the yellow reservoir, which means the pump is running low. So we got to definitely do some stuff here. PTU off. This is an important one because if you don't turn the PTU off within about 2 minutes, nope, that's not the PTU. Hydraulic. PTU. Focus on what you're doing here. If you don't turn the PTU off within 2 minutes, it can also cause the other system to fail. So turning off the PTU immediately is very important. Yellow engine 2 pump off. Hydraulic, yellow engine 2 pump. That was the correct switch, but I was just throwing it too early. And the fault light grabbed my attention, brought me to it, but that was not the correct switch. So now we've done that switch correctly. Max flight time, 2 hours. All right, good to know. Timer set. And we are 17:27. We are exactly 1 hour from landing in Orlando. So I think we can just continue to Orlando. We can consider a conversion, but I don't think it's really necessary at this time. Let's have a look here. So hydraulics, yellow engine 2 pump low pressure. Well, that's to be expected because we turned it off. Yellow system low pressure. Well, that's to be expected because there's no fluid in the system to pressurize. Brake yellow accumulator pressure monitor. So we do have pressure in the yellow accumulator right now for the parking brake because the parking brake runs in the yellow system. There is a chance that if there's a slow leak in the system, we may not have pressure left by the time we get to the gate. We may need to leave one engine running until the aircraft is chocked. All right, so that's good for hydraulics. Clear hydraulics. Clear hydraulics. And flight control. So due to the failure of the yellow system, we have lost some flight control systems. We've lost spoilers 2 and 4. We have lost 1 of the 3 rudder actuators and 1 out of 4 elevator actuators. Sorry, 1 out of 3 rudder actuators, 1 out of 4 elevator actuators, and we lost 1 out of 2 pitch trim actuators. So everything still works except for spoilers 2 and 4, but some redundancy is lost. Clear flight controls. Clear flight control status. Stop ECAM. All right, so let's consider this first of all. Can we reset any systems? In this case, it's a total fluid loss in the yellow system by the looks of it. I don't think any reset is going to get that fluid back in that tank. So there's nothing we can do to reset. There's no currently outstanding items. We do have to start setting up for the arrival, but we might as well finish processing the ECAM because that will likely impact our arrival planning. And yeah, no engine relights or other outstanding procedures. So continue ECAM status. Landing distance procedure applies. So we are going to have to apply a landing distance procedure. We're going to need longer than usual landing distance. And let's see here. Center tank fuel unusable. That's from before. We got flaps slow now. Cat 3 single only. Inoperative systems. We do have yellow hydraulics completely inoperative. Spoilers 2 and 4 as mentioned. Cat 3 duals no longer available. Center tank pumps are from before. Reverser 2 is not available and reverser 1 is not available, so we've lost double reversers now. Oh, this is a good failure actually. I wasn't thinking about that. But on top of the MEL, that actually makes things interesting here. Cargo door can't be operated automatically. It's going to have to be manually operated. Yellow engine 2 pump is shut down as per the ECAM, and yaw damper 2 is also offline. So we got to do a landing distance procedure, flaps slow, and no reversers now. Remove status. Remove status. ECAM actions are complete. All right, very good. So we completed the ECAM actions. There's no QRH procedure directly associated with this. We do have a time limit. It's 2 hours, of which we've used now 2 minutes and 45 seconds. So we have lots of time. We can make it to our destination in the time that remains quite easily, barring any future failures. So time is not a big issue. So options. Do we continue? We could continue. Most of what we've lost is redundancy. The biggest thing I think we've lost at this point is the second reverser. The second reverser, the parking brake circuit as well, is only running off the accumulator, so that's fine if we don't use the parking brake too much before we get to the gate. The regular brakes are off the green system, so that's fine. Flight controls are all fine. We've also lost 2 spoilers, so our deceleration is not going to be as great on the ground as it should be. We should still be fine. Orlando's got pretty long runways. We may have to request a longer runway. We'll do the numbers in a second here. Right now, I don't see any reason not to continue. The aircraft is still capable of flying. We do have the time limit. We'll make it to the destination well within the time limit. There are alternates out here. There is Nassau should be up. No, Nassau's off to the right, I believe here. Or are we over Nassau? Oh, we're over Nassau right now, actually. Haha. Just for fun. I think we're over Nassau. We just passed over Nassau. So I don't believe a diversion is in order at this time. I'm thinking about it. Definitely going back is way too far. It would take us 1-2 hours to get back there. I don't believe a diversion is in order. I believe we can continue, and I believe it's probably the safest course of action because Orlando doesn't have nice long runways. If we continue towards Florida, there's also other long runways in Florida. A little closer. Miami's a little closer. We'll kind of pass over Fort Lauderdale and Miami, so there are some longer runways available to us about 150 miles ahead. So I kind of like our odds of going ahead. So right now, I'm going to say probably elect to continue. This will be a case where you probably want to call the company first before you even let ATC know that anything has happened. So you send a company message, yellow hydraulic system leak, hydraulic system off, yellow hydraulic system offline. Plan is to continue to KMCO. Do you have any thoughts? And probably the better way to fish for information before I hit send on that is even just thoughts on continuing to Orlando versus diverting. And it's an interesting way to kind of look for information. Like, you want to kind of let them know that you've thought about it, but at the same time, you want to kind of get unbiased opinions. So if you ACAR's your dispatcher, you don't want to bias his opinion by telling him what you're planning already. The better thing is to say, what are your thoughts, and see if they back up what you're thinking. So that would be the best thing to say, and see if they agree that continuing on to Orlando is acceptable and is from a company perspective is fine. I think it's going to be probably one of our best options is to continue straight ahead. Yeah, there's Nassau should be somewhere off the left, I believe. Yeah, but that's my plan right now, is let's continue because I think that's the safest course of action at this point. And yeah, so we'd have to notify ATC, backend, and company. So ATC, do we notify ATC? So this is something you got to think about for a second here. We've lost some redundancy. We haven't even really lost enough redundancy that it's really affecting the flight of the aircraft. That being said, telling ATC that something happened and something is not quite right really is not that bad of an idea. Even if you don't do a pan or a MATI, but just to let them know. Yeah. It's one of those things where it's not really going to affect your flight too much. If there's any further degradations, it could really impact your flight. Yeah, it's kind of a hard thing because I kind of want to pass the information along without making it too urgent because it's not terribly urgent at this time. So probably something like Miami Center, JetBlue 1434. We've had an issue with the hydraulic system. We've lost one of the 3 hydraulic systems in the aircraft. Right now, all the redundancies kicked in. The aircraft's perfectly capable of continuing, and we're planning to continue to Orlando. However, when we get to Orlando, we will have some stopping issues. Don't believe that it's going to prevent us from landing in Orlando, but we may need to request the longest runway. We're going to calculate the numbers. We'll get back to you on the request, but just wanted to advise you of the situation. And then they can make that note on your flight plan, hydraulic issue, make the next controller aware of it. And that way it's not a surprise when you suddenly call up and say, yeah, no, we have to take the longest runway because we have an issue. It's not even an emergency at this point. It really isn't. This is so... As important as the hydraulic systems are, this particular failure with the amount of redundancy in the aircraft, it doesn't even warrant a pan to me. There's nothing really imminently dangerous about this as long as nothing else fails. That I would pass the information along, not even as a pan. So that's my way of looking at it. I don't even want to do a pan because it's not that exciting. And as far as the flight part of the aspect of this flight is concerned, it's almost a non-event. Nothing much is going to change for the flight itself. Only for the landing distance is it really going to make a difference to our decision making and potentially have an impact on ATC's planning as well. So yeah, that's how I would do that. As far as the back end, I would probably tell the cabin crew. Do I even tell the passengers? And again, it comes down to some thoughts, some considerations. There's not necessarily a right answer or wrong answer, but you just got to think about the whole big picture. So when we get to Orlando, we're not going to be able to use the parking brake. We're not going to be able to use reversers. We're not going to use 2 out of 5 spoilers. We are going to have a longer landing distance. Because we have a hydraulic system leak, you kind of want to have an inspection of the aircraft just to make sure hydraulic fluid is not leaked all over the brakes or anything like that. So it might still be a good idea to have the emergency services standing by, maybe perform an inspection on the runway before you taxi to the gate, just to make sure that there's no threat of fire. Hydraulic fluid can be flammable. Hydraulic fluid leaking in the wrong spot could be a bad day for you. It's something to consider, and that's going to determine whether or not I tell the passengers. So definitely want to tell the flight attendants. You can tell the cabin crew, and that's fine. But do we tell the passengers? And do we want because if we stop on the runway and we have fire trucks flying around approaching the aircraft and inspecting the aircraft, the passengers are going to know something's up. They need to know something's up in advance. So my thought is probably to tell them and to request it. Just, again, to err on the safe side, it's probably nothing. Probably, if chances are, if the fluid is leaked out, it's gone completely. It's wicked down the side of the fuselage somewhere. It's possible it could be pooled in the landing gear bay. It could be on the it could be on the landing gear, and if we use a lot of brakes, which we will have to since we don't have reversers, we don't have 2 out of 5 spoilers, those brakes can get pretty hot. So it's kind of my thinking right now is that it's not even really a pan, but I do want to request ATC just to have the emergency services standing by, just to check for still leaking hydraulic fluid when we get there. I think it's gone. I don't think it's going to still be leaking when we get there, but I'd like someone to just make an external inspection of the aircraft to verify that before we start taxiing all the way to the gate. So in which case I think we would have to notify the back end for sure, and I think I will tell the passengers something's going on just so that they're not surprised. So for the back end, it's pretty straightforward. Once you get the flight attendant up in the flight deck, you just simply tell them the situation. So we've found a hydraulic leak. We've lost hydraulic fluid out of one of the 3 systems. The other 2 systems have taken over, and the redundancy in the airplane is going to keep us flying just fine. There will be a minor issue with stopping on the runway. We're not going to be able to decelerate as quickly as normal, so we are going to take the longer runway in Orlando. We're going to stop on the runway as well, just to make sure there's not hydraulic fluid. There's not hydraulic fluid dripping on the brakes or anything from the leak. We don't know where the leak is, so it could be that could be a potential threat. So we're not going to or we are going to get the fire trucks to come out and inspect the aircraft before we taxi to the gate. I anticipate it's going to be fine, and we're going to taxi to the gate, but that is the plan. So I'm going to tell the passengers. Estimated time of landing in Orlando is about 17:27, so that's just about 50 minutes from now, 48 minutes from now. There's no need to displace any passengers around the cabin, and I will make a PA to the passengers as soon as you've told the other flight attendants what's happening. Do you have any questions? No? All right, good. On your way. Wait a couple minutes, call the in charge back to make sure that they've told the flight attendants, so the other flight attendants are not surprised when you make this PA, and you make a PA to the passengers. Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, this is the captain speaking. I'd just like your attention for a moment for some important information. Unfortunately, we've had a malfunction with the aircraft with one of our hydraulic systems. We do have 3 systems on board this aircraft, so the 2 remaining systems are functioning perfectly normally. However, we are going to have the service vehicles meet us when we land in Orlando on the runway, just to confirm that there is no greater threat than what we see right now on all of our instruments. Right now we anticipate a normal landing, and we'll stop on the runway just to get inspected by the service vehicles. Following that, we expect to taxi to the gate. We are going to be landing in Orlando in about 45 minutes there. The weather right now is pretty nice, partly cloudy skies and 30 degrees Celsius. I'd ask you to follow the instructions of the cabin crew, and we will talk to you again on the ground in Orlando. Thank you for your patience and understanding. Something to that effect. Yeah, wait till top of drop to tell them. Yeah, there's something to be said for that. Right now, I want to kind of get it all out of the way, mostly because I want to be able to focus on setting up the arrival at this point. So now we've told everybody we need to tell. Let's see here. We have no overweight considerations. We're going to be under max landing weight by the time we get to Orlando. 100 kilos over max landing weight right now. And yeah, so we can probably start setting up for the arrival now. So we will have to do a landing distance calculation. Let's verify this first of all, that we can land on the... Okay, come on. Pause. Thank you. Land on the anticipated runway in... And that's a good thought. Yeah, wait till top of drop. The only thing is that once you get close to top of descent, it does start to get very busy. The last thing you need is a lot of distraction. Let's see here. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for a landing distance calculation here. So landing distance calculation, and I'm going to take it worst case scenario. I'm going to say wet runway here. I'm going to do 17 left because I want to see what the distance is on 17 left. Apply the METAR. Landing weight, so let's just come down here and look at this. So we've got a ZFW of 59 tons, so 63 and a half. I'm going to round it up to 64 tons. And that way, again, we're kind of playing worst case scenarios here. So landing weight, 64 tons. I'm going to probably put medium auto brake. Medium auto brake. Idle, no reverse available. Manual landing. Flaps full, auto thrust on. So it's actually pretty reasonable with medium auto brake. Even with low auto brake, we can actually land on 17 left. It's 9,000 feet available. The factor distance would take you up to 8,100 feet. So low would be pretty... Like, even then, you've still got a factor. I will take it to medium just because I don't have the spoilers. Oh, actually, you know what I didn't do? I didn't put in the hydraulic system failure. Shoot. Yellow system low pressure. That's the one I need. Max manual applied due to failure calculation. Okay, so, and that's fine. So max manual, yeah, it's got to be applied. Yeah, just trying to see the difference in distances. I mean, it's telling me 5,900 feet at max manual, so no auto brake. 6,700 feet factored. We could land 17 left. We can land 17 left. It's very reasonable, and I would assume that that's the runway they would want us to land on. Let's have a look here. 17 left is 9,000 feet, and 18 right is 12,000 feet. To get to airside 1, 18 right's definitely closer, so I kind of want to land 18 right because I don't want to do a long taxi in with this. We don't want to ride the brakes for a long time. I don't want to have to set the parking brake an excessive number of times on the way to airside 1, just because, again, we got the yellow accumulator only. We have maybe 6 applications of the parking brake in there, so I think we'll set it once on the runway, and then I will not set the parking brake again throughout the rest of the taxi, even if we come to a full stop anywhere, until we get to airside 1, just to save our brakes. Save our brake accumulator pressure. Oh, look at all these things here at save for me, LFPO and CYYC. Anyways, okay. So I think that's a very reasonable option. So we'll plan 17 left. We'll put 18 right in the secondary. I've got MCO approach. There it is. There's the arrival ATIS again. Yeah. Arrival ATIS. Parallel runways in use. Visual approaches, 18 right, 17 left in use. So we're going to plan 17 left initially, put 18 right in the secondary. We'll request 18 right, mostly for the shorter taxi with the failure. We'll coordinate with the controller and see what they are able to accommodate. We'll tell them we're going to stop on the runway for a brief inspection for 3 or 4 minutes, brief inspection, and then taxi back to the gate. Seems very reasonable. All right. Hopefully the ATC is still online when we get there, and even if Orlando approach goes offline, we've got Jacksonville Center, so I think we're good. I think we're good either way. Okay, so let's set up for this arrival. Probably easiest to do it this way. Do this, slide over here. There we go. Pardon me. Yeah, so let's go through this. Let's make sure everything is in here that needs to be in here. We do have 17 left right now, so we're coming up through Octal. We're coming right up out of Fort Lauderdale here. Okay, Octal, corn, bands, and actually the other thing I need to have on here. Yeah, this is not good. Okay, let me find a better way to look at this here, because you kind of need to have both of these things in sight here, and you need this in plan mode, you need this down at a low level, you need constraints on. Oh, it would be nice to have that mini EFIS. One day we'll have mini EFIS. Okay, I think that's good enough. You can kind of see what's going on here. Alright, so, Octal corn, bands below 230, chefs 280, 210 to 190, 280 knots. Moots above 15,000, rides above 8,000. No, that's not applicable because we're not landing that direction. So Wizard. Then we go to theme above 10,000. park between 11 and 9,000, 250 knots. Parks. Yeah, 11, 9, 250 knots. Yeah, Haynes 220, 9,000 to 8,000. That's there. Pittman at 210 at 5,000. And then after the manual leg, it's too steep path for the discon. That's fine. Let's just have a look at the notes while we're looking at this. Radar, jets only. MCO approach will issue landing runway. Expect to send via clearance. And landing north or south. For vertical navigation planning, landing south, select 17 left. Landing north, select 35 right. So we expect 17 left from this side. We're going to put 18 right on request for the shorter taxi, partly due to the failure of that double thrust reverser failure. All right. Yeah, okay, so that's everything that's on the arrival. Let's pick up the approaches here. So first we're going to do the ILS to 17 left. And then in the secondary, oh, this is Toronto. So those runways aren't correct. All right, so the ILS to 17 left first, and then 18 right will be the secondary. All right. So let's see here. So it starts at Cedo, above 2,500. Cocos at 1,500. Orlando 17 left, and then the missed approach is 500 feet, climbing left 3,000 on a heading of 100. Outbound on the Orlando 140 radial to Presque intersection and continue climbing and hold to 3,000. So left turn to intercept that outbound radial to the Presque intersection, hold to 3,000. That's good. Okay. So that's all in the box. The rad nav 110.95 IARK and 186 is good. Prog page, I'm going to put ORL VMware here as our reference point now, and 190 miles to go is the correct one, not thousands of miles to go. Perf for the descent, 7.5 and 260 is fine for the descent speeds. Let's see here, QNH I should say. QNH, where's my VPilot here? Okay, so let's bring it up on screen here as well. VPilot, 2995, 32 degrees, 240 at 14. 2995, 32 degrees, and 240 at 14. The ILSDA is 290. Barrow. Config full for this landing. And missed approach is at 3,000 feet, so we're going to climb to 3,000 feet before we accelerate. 3,000 feet, there we go, that's all in. Fuel prediction page showing 1.5 extra, 44 minutes of extra fuel when we get to Miami, so we got, or when we get to Orlando, so we got enough to definitely hang out, do a go around, come back and try it again, so we're not in a big rush. And then secondary, we're going to copy the active, and we're going to change this to 18 right. It'll be the same arrival, and it'll just be the approach itself that's changed. So let's just bring up 18 right here while we're at it. Alright, so after the leg change, it's Hammy. Hammy's above 3,000. Tuffy at 2,200. 18 right, and then 500 feet right turn, 4,000 on a heading of 270. Intercept 227 radial to the Cam-B intersection, hold at 4,000. Alright, so that all looks good in the secondary. Let's go to secondary performance. It should have copied all the stuff from the descent and approach phase and just change the minimums here. So let's go ahead and do 294. And we also changed the go-around altitude. Acceleration is going to be at 4,000 feet now. And the last thing I need to do is just double check the NOTAMs for anything that could be unfortunately affecting us on this arrival here. So, Orlando. I checked taxiways. Taxiways, there's nothing exciting. Approach procedures. RNAV, 18 right. Not going to plan the RNAV 18 right. RLS or LOC 18 right. Straight in LOC only approach. That's fine. We're not doing the LOC only. And that's it. Procedures not applicable except for radial altimeter tolerance. The A320 fleet is fine for that. Okay, I think we're all set up. And where are we now? We just passed over Canvey. Oh, for crying out loud, now we got FCDC1 fault as well. Now we got random failures coming at me here. Oh, this is turning into a lousy airplane. Okay, let's just do this really quick. 1651 and shoot, 1651. We got 5.1 in the tanks. Let's just see this fuel trend here. So where did I put that? 1651 and 5.1 in the tanks. So I just want to do this just because I haven't done one for a while here with chatting. 1651, we're actually a little bit late at Canvey, and we're down only 100 kilos, so we can pick up the speed if we wanted to. All right, we have a level 1 failure, a level 1 ECAM, not even a caution. So I'll give you the briefing in a second. First, let's cover the ECAM actions. I have control. All right, FCDC1 fault. No associated procedure. Clear flight control. Clear flight control. And stop ECAM. All right, so we do have to do the briefing. We'll get that out of the way once we talked about the ECAMs. Otherwise, I've got no resets for the FCDC, I believe. I could pull out the QRH. If we have time, we'll pull it out. I'm not going to worry too much about it right now. Continue ECAM. Status, landing distance, procedure, apply. That's from before. Center tank, fuel, unusable, flaps, slow, cat 3, single only. That's all from before. Yellow hydraulics. Spoiler 2 and 4, cat 3 tool, center tank pumps, reverser 2, cargo door, yellow engine 2 pump, yaw damper 2. Those are all from before the new INOP system FCDC1. So there is one new fault. Remove status. Remove status. I don't believe that's going to change the plan at this point, so I want to brief this because we're about to come up to our top of descent point here. So, you have control.
I have control.
Are you ready for the approach briefing?
Go ahead.
All right, and weather is good. Runway will say is wet. APU after landing, yes. ILS threats, weather, possibly, yeah. Auto land, no. Final sector, no. FO, EFIS, ILS required, yes. Minimum descent altitude. 290 MSL. Airport elevation, I don't even know what it is. Airport elevation is 96 feet. There we go. And now I've set all that stuff up. Okay, so technical status of the aircraft. We know about the failures. We've lost the yellow hydraulic system. That's having an impact on spoilers, reversers. Per the MEL, because we now have both reversers in op, I'm not going to select reverse thrust after landing. We're just going to select idle thrust, and that's it, because neither reverser will operate at this point, so there's no point in selecting them. So no reverse thrust selected on this case. It's going to be manual brakes because of the system failure. We're going to be manual braking only. No TAMs. I didn't see anything that affects the ILS to 17 left or 18 right. So both cases were good. So regardless of the approach, the arrival is the rides to Arnav. Arrival, plate 20-2 Juliet. We're just starting it now at Octal. Routing constraints are all as published. No special notes in the plan. And the bottom altitude for us for reference on this is 5,000. I might as well set it now because I don't have any ATC here. And I'm going to need to start down here soon. So we'll say we were cleared to descend via. So there's 5,000 feet set. Roger, 5,000. The currently planned approach in the primary is planned as 17 left ILS. Plate 21-1, 110.95 IARK, and 185 is all auto-tuned. COCAS at 1500 and 290 for the ILSDA, and I can see it's there on the barrow. Missed approach is as published as otherwise advised by ATC. The top altitude for 17 left is 3,000 feet. The MSA all sectors around the Orlando VOR 3,000. Let's see here. Simultaneous approach is authorized. Bright lights on highway midway between 17 left and 17 right may be mistaken for runway lights, so we've got to be careful of that. Fortunately, it's daytime. VGS ILS glide path not coincident. RNF1 DDR GPS or radars required. DME or radar required. We'll have ATC, so we should have radar. Glide slope is 3 degrees. Pappy's on the left. ALSF2 lighting system. RVR 1800 a half mile. The weather seems to be okay. Weather seems to be okay. We're going to probably just do it as a visual backed up by the ILS. Once we land on 17 left or 18 right, we're going to stop on the runway, get evaluated by the emergency vehicle. Should take about 3 or 4 minutes, assuming they don't find any threat of fire near the landing gear, near the brakes. We'll continue onto the gate. We have to pick an airside parking. I'm going to pick airside 9, I think, today. So let's just pull that up as well, just so we have it ready. Taxi airside 1 and 3. So gate 9, hopefully it's a 320 style gate. It's right at the end of the pier there too, so that's pretty nice. Okay, good. Yeah. It's going to be a managed approach to a manual landing, low glide slope coupled approach. It's a visual approach, but we're going to fly it as an ILS approach. So once we're clear for the approach, we're going to arm approach mode, second autopilot. Anti-ice is going to be off for this approach. It's manual brakes, no reverse, and config full for landing. I got to remember this no reverse. It's going to be weird. It's going to be very weird. In the secondary, we have the ILS to 18 right, which is what we're going to request because it gives us a shorter taxi. It also gives us a longer runway, but the shorter taxi, especially with the risk from the potential hydraulic leak in any spilled hydraulic fluid, I think is going to be much nicer. So we're going to ask the controller nicely if we can do that. If the traffic load's not too bad, I'm sure he'll probably allow it. 21-3 for the ILS or LOC 18 right in Florida. So that LOC will be ITFE 111.9, 185 the inbound course again. Tuffy at 2200, the ILS DA for that, 294. That's all been set. We just have to verify the correct identifier once we're tuned in. Same MSA. In this case, the missed approach says published or advised by ATC. Top altitude on that is 4,000 for 18 right. This is also 3-degree slope. Pappy's left. MLSR lighting system. RV 1800 or half mile. Again, same on this one. Stop on the runway. Touchdown point limit for both runways would be the end of the painted touchdown zone. Kind of disengage the autopilot when we're established on final, probably about 500 feet. I want it to be a nice stable approach just because I want to make sure that the landing is stable for the given the deceleration problems we have. All right, and there is top of descent point is passed, so there's thrust idle descent, alt blue. And I think that's about it. Threats for this approach. Obviously the failures. As long as we don't have any more failures, I think we've mitigated everything. We've discussed the landing distance. The landing distance on both runways is good. We're going to try to take the longer one if we can get it. We'll talk to ATC about that. Yeah, the parking brake, the yellow accumulator is another big threat. I'm going to try to only use the parking brake twice. Once on the runway and once when we get to the gate. I'm going to try not to use it at any other point in time. I will hold the brake. So anytime we stop and hold the brakes, I would turn to the first officer and say, tell me, and watch carefully to make sure that the aircraft stays put, because one of the reasons why we tend to set the parking brake every time we stop is so we don't accidentally relax the pressure and start moving. So when we come to a full stop, we'll consider it a high AOV until we start moving again, until we're set the parking, unless we have the parking brake set, which will only happen at the gate. So please watch carefully outside to make sure we're not moving. I'll be doing the same when we think we're stopped. That's a threat. Weather's not too much of a threat. It's a little bit of a strong wind. It's more or less right down the runway, so I'm not too worried about that. Get to the gate. I think that's everything. I think I've covered most of the major stuff here. Yeah. Any questions?
No questions.
I have control.
You have control.
They even do a descent checklist on this airplane? They don't, do they? They just do an approach checklist, right? Yeah, just an approach checklist. Okay. All right. There we go. All right, let me get Orlando tuned up here. I missed it. What was the failure of this flight? B falsetto. So it was interesting. We started out with an MEL. So this is kind of an interesting combination how MELs can come, and you got to really think about these things. So we started out with an MEL in our flight plan of 7830-01 Alpha, which is the right-hand thrust reverser. Oh, that should have been left-hand thrust reverser and op. I didn't even notice that all this time. Left-hand thrust reversers in op. The number one thrust reversers in op. We have now lost the yellow hydraulic system. We lost all the fluid out of the yellow hydraulic system, so we've lost the yellow hydraulic system. So just to give you an idea on the status page, flaps, low cat 3 single, only yellow hydraulics, reverser number 2. So we now have no reverser on either side. And then it's funny, we got another random failure. We got FCTC1 just randomly popped up when I was almost done briefing the failure. So we are yellow hydraulic system failure. It's not a terrible failure by itself as long as no other hydraulic systems fail, but it's definitely interesting. 24.8 for MCO East approach. So let's get that frequency tuned up and ready to go, because we're going to be in his airspace very soon. This has been kind of a lengthy briefing, but there's a lot to talk about. It's not quite as interesting as the thrust reverser unlocked at the engine failure and the engine shutdown on the last one, but it's still interesting nevertheless. So definitely it's keeping me on my toes here. All right, so coming up Florida here. I'm just trying to figure out where I'm going to call this guy. Let me see. If I do SimAware, that should probably tell me. Okay, give me a second here. I'm just going to do SimAware, because SimAware actually has really good airspace depictions. Terminal units are often depicted correctly sized. Yeah, it doesn't really give me much. This one is a circle. It's not very accurately sized, so. If I just look at the star chart again, I'm just trying to figure out what point roughly to call this guy here. Come on, load it up. Now he gave up altogether. Maybe even as I come through chefs, I think might be a good time to call him. So very soon we're going to give this guy a call. Let me make sure I've got this correct here, but I'm pretty sure I have the audio settings correct on this now. It should be going, excuse me, it should be coming in so you can see it. Yeah, so it's an interesting failure. It's not like a crazy failure, but there are lots of things you have to think about. That parking brake is an interesting one. The fact that the reversers will not deploy, so we're not going to move the thrust reversers into reverse at all, because number one is MEL, and number two is now inoperative. So the landing distance should still work. We did the calculation here, and here's the calculation. The landing distance required 5,900 feet, even on 17 left, 9,000 foot runway. It should be okay. It should be okay. And really, like, the reversers help. What's going to happen though, and kind of the other risk on this is because we have no reversers and 2 of the 5 spoilers are not working. We're going to heat up those brakes, and we're going to heat them up a lot. It's nothing but brakes that's going to stop this airplane. So they're going to get hot really fast. So if there was hydraulic fluid dripping near them, that could be very risky. Now, this failure happened in cruise 45 minutes ago, 35 minutes ago, because I set this timer, because there's a 2-hour time limit as well. You can't be in the air for more than 2 hours on this failure. There's speed. Yeah, we're going to have to dissipate a lot of energy just using the brakes and nothing else. If there is fluid leaking near the brakes, there is the potential for a fire. Lots of things to think about. And this is where this job gets hard. Most of the days it's pretty easy, but sometimes there are lots of things to think about. It's knowing all that stuff to think about. Individually, that all makes sense, but you've got to remember this at the important times. Let's see here. Chefs is between 21 and 19. I think I've been talking and flying for too long because my voice is starting to fail me here. All right, I'm going to pull up the Orlando approach now because I think it's close enough.
For American 1363.
Wind 300 at 23, gusting 36.
That's not going to be possible for American 1363. That puts me with almost a 20-knot tailwind.
Oh, geez. Orlando approach, good afternoon. JetBlue 1434 descending through 219 or descending via the ride's arrival. We have information, Bravo. Did he just...
JetBlue 434, Orlando approach, hello.
Oh.
JetBlue 1434, hello. And JetBlue 1434, please ident and say altitude.
JetBlue 1434, we're passing through 216 now. Here comes the ident.
JetBlue 1434, radar contact 71 miles southeast of Orlando International Airport, descent via rights to arrival, and yeah, I'll give you information for approach.
Okay, JetBlue 1434 descending via the rides to arrival, and if we can, we'd like to request arrival on either 17 right or 35 left. We've had a hydraulic failure, and we're going to need a little bit of extra distance if we can do it.
Okay, JetBlue 1434, please expect we have severe weather here, so currently it's 17 right, but it may change.
Okay, we'll change to 17 right for now, JetBlue 1434.
Okay, American 1363, do you want to wait until winds calm down, or do you want to try for takeoff?
Yeah, I can't take off with these winds right now. It's a 20 knot tailwind. If you need me, I could go somewhere to park. Maybe wait for the storm to pass.
Interesting,
Okay,
interesting.
American 1363, please hold your current position.
Holding position, American 1363.
Yeah, there it is right there. Right over the field right now. I don't see it out here.
04, please hold your position.
Hold position, JetBlue 1004.
And for JetBlue 1434, sorry, can you say the now winds for our benefit as well?
American 1363, current winds is 30023, gusting 36. I will change to Northrops now.
Okay, JetBlue 1434 copies. Okay, now we gotta switch runways again. Oh, okay, let's see if we got a current METAR here. Let's hit refresh METAR and see what it gives me here. Yeah, there's the current METAR, 320, 13 gusting 34. Yeah, we're not going to be able to do that tailwind landing. So, yeah, look at how much the distance increased with the tailwind. So,
okay, JetBlue 1004, runway 35 left, taxi via Hotel 10.
I'm going to take away, oops, let's apply METAR.
Taxi to
I'm
runway
going to take away almost all the way. I'm going to actually put a tailwind. 185. Just to like really kind of show
American
this case.
1363, do you need some extra space, or will you be able to turn on hotel?
Okay.
I'm going to have to enter 35 left, 17 right here to make that the turnaround.
Okay, American 1363, runway 35 left, taxi via 17 left, then exit left on Hotel 2.
He hasn't told me which runway to
Hotel
expect
10.
yet, so I'm kind of, I'm hesitant to even start doing any work to put anything in until he tells me what to expect
by,
here.
17 right, Hotel 2, Hotel, American 1363.
Altimeter was 2995. It's a good thing there's only a handful of airplanes because it sounds like he's struggling with this. Alright, 2995.
2995.
Cross-checked.
Set.
Good old Florida afternoon thunderstorm.
7,900.
The sim doesn't look too nasty, but just looking at this picture here, this looks nasty. And you guys can't see that. I keep showing you this stuff, guys. I'm sorry.
Approach, November 9
I have two different views, and one of them doesn't show the overlay windows. But
with information Foxtrot looking
there's Orlando.
Clearance to Jacksonville.
Not a great time to be landing in Orlando.
November 93, Whiskey Bravo, Orlando departure, hello, please stand by. Break, Spirit Winds 336, clear direct Medusa, climb, maintain 16,000.
See, last he says was landing south. He really hasn't kind of told us what to expect, and he's dealing with stuff. I get it.
Spirit Winds 336, Orlando departure.
Spirit Wings 336,
Spirit Winds 336, clear direct Medusa, climb, maintain 16,000.
Clear direct Medusa, climb, maintain 16,000, 16,000, Spirit Wings 336.
JetBlue 1434, please expect ILS approach runway 35 left.
Okay, we'll set up for the ILS to 35 left, JetBlue 1434. Alright, so this changes things substantially here, so we got to change everything. We got to butcher this whole
November
thing. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pull heading for a second here. VS minus 900 is fine heading. Alright,
departure frequency going to be with me, squawk 4.
So we're going to do ILS 35 left, and I have to change the star to something else just to force it to recalculate the star, otherwise it will not change the transition on the star, even though I've changed the arrival runway. This is one little glitch that the Fenix does here. So ILS 35 left, and we're going to go back to the
November 3 Whiskey Bravo,
Rides 3.
Expect runway 7, call me when ready to
octal.
taxi.
We can reinsert all
Runway
that.
7, we'll call when ready to taxi. 93 Whiskey Bravo.
And then it does know where we are, so we can put it back in nav mode. And it seems to have some idea of what we're doing. I'm really not sure at 100% that it knows what we're doing here, but chefs, moots, rides. Trying to do the single pilot is not easy. So chefs, moots, rides, wizard, and then it should be Hana, manual leg change. Yep. Oh, we're not actually on the nav. Okay, so we are inbound to rides. Hold on. What does it think the next... okay, remove chef, that's why. Okay, so remove chef. Insert that. Now we should be able to... There's nav. Okay, so now we're on nav. We're way above the path, and that's fine because we need time to deal with this anyways. Alright, so now we got to pull this up. We got to deal with this. 3-5 left. So rides above 8,000. And then Wizard and Hannah at 6,000. And we're never going to make Hannah at 6,000. There's just no way.
Orlando, November 9.
That would be the assumption at this point. Like you can't instantly change things. It takes time to make changes. So ILS 3-5 left.
November 3 Whiskey Bravo,
right?
with 7 taxi VR. Let me see where you...
21-4, 110.5.
Golf Alpha 8.
Golf Alpha 8 07, 93 Whiskey Bravo.
Alright, so...
Speedwing 336, contact Jackson Center 135.92.
Spur. Fightums above 3. Spurs at 1,600.
135.903.
And then climb to 3,000 on a heading of 005.
135.902.
Wheel 049. To Oviedo intersection. And hold at 3,000. So he's still 3,000 feet. Radar acquired, TV requires.
Orlando Air Canada 342, heavy request taxi with pop-up.
Right highway, okay. Pappy's right, ALS-F2 lighting system. Orlando's busy too. Alright, so rad nav, I've got IDDO 110.5, 006, that's close enough. Prague, perf, it's fine. Approach phase 288.
Alright, 35
288. Now I'm just scrambling here to try and get caught up. It would help if I had another pilot, but I don't. I'm on my own, so I gotta do it. 1.5 0044. Secondary, I'm not going to worry about because I'm just going to leave that in there for now. Alright, so now we got something here. Alright, so quick rebrief. The star, the new routing constraints are all published. We're not going to make it. The bottom
1434, turn right, heading 360, descend, maintain 5,000, vectors final.
Alright, right turn 360, vectors to final. We're almost set up JetBlue 1434. Alright, so heading is 360, pull, and he said... sorry, just to confirm the altitude for JetBlue 1434, you said 5,000?
Yes, descend, maintain 5,000, please.
5,000, JetBlue 1434, roger. Alright, there's 5,000. 5,000 feet set, we've got heading, and we are heading 360, so he did figure out that we are high, because how could we not be high at this point? When you switch it off when we're expected to fly past the field, it's just the way it is. So, quick rebrief here. So now we're on vector, so we're not even going to bother briefing the star. It's just the ILS to runway 35 left is what we're planning. 21-4, 110.5 IDDO, and 005 the inbound course. Spur 1,600. Before I forget, let's get the belts on. ILS DA of 288. And that's what we got there. Alright. Climb to 3,000 feet on the heading of 005 and outbound on the Orlando VOR radial 049 to Oviedo. And 3,000 feet for the MSA again. No special notes that weren't there before. Still Pappy's on the right on this one. I don't know if we're going to stop on the runway anymore just because this guy feels like he's working hard to try and move the rest of the traffic, and I don't want to be that guy. So let's just have a quick look here at 18.
American 1363, runway 35 left, line up and wait.
Turns off the runway.
Line up and wait, 35 left. American
and he's just putting everyone on 35 left is the other thing that's kind of really... Okay, and we have already activated approach phase, which is no good to me now, so let's go 250 speed. All right, man.
JetBlue 1004, say altitude.
Selected speed 250. All right, I think we got just about everything here. We don't need the anti-ice. Boy, are we working here. All right, any questions about the rebrief? I think that was everything. Thank God we have a controller to help out with this whole thing. All right, so we're going to go, because we're on vectors, we're going to go direct fight them with the radial in, just to give us something to look at. That looks good. Insert. We've got nav, and we're going to disarm nav, again, heading of 360. All right, we got the speed 250, we got heading 360. I mean, when you change stuff at the last second, and part of me knew that we were high, and part of me said I'm not going to do anything about it yet, because I kind of wanted to point out. I didn't want to point out the controllers. It was a bit passive aggressive, in all honesty, but he can't claim me for an approach at 10,000 feet. You know, when I'm 10 miles final, 10,000 feet.
JetBlue 1434, turn right heading 090.
Right heading 090, JetBlue 1434. Now that I'm set up, I can start expediting my descent. I can pull out the speed brakes and start to descend faster, but I needed the time. And so by not descending any faster, by not increasing my rate of descent, and I was about to tell him that I was
American 1363, RNAV, J-Wolf, wind 32013, gusting 34, runway 35.
I was about to tell him that we weren't going to make the restriction, but he saw it anyways in time, just about a minute before I was going to tell him. He saw that I was going to make the restriction, so now I can increase the rate of descent here.
Number 3, Whiskey Bravo, fly runway heading wind. Well, actually, it doesn't show me winds in Orlando Executive. Orlando International wings is 320 gusting 34, runway 7, clear for takeoff.
Approach checklist.
Fly runway heading, clear for takeoff, runway 7, 93 Whiskey Bravo.
2995 inches set.
JetBlue 1434, turn right heading 180, descend maintain 3000.
Right turn heading 180, descend 3000, JetBlue 1434. Okay, heading is 180, we're in the turn, he said descend 3000, so 3000 feet is set, roger 3000. I thought we were in open descent this whole time, we weren't in open descent, no wonder we're not going down any faster, no matter how much I put the speed brakes out, we're not going any faster down. Ugh. Read the FMA.
American 1366.
It would help a lot though if I had a real second pilot to really kind of push me through some of this stuff here.
American 1363.
American 1363.
Repeat last.
Seatbelts.
On.
Minimum.
288 feet set.
Auto brake.
Disarmed.
Engine mode selected.
Normal.
Approach checklist completed.
Thank you.
Please use caution when opening overhead bins, as items may have shifted during our flight.
JetBlue 1004, contact Jefferson Central 135.92 feet.
125, 20 miles and 90 right. Today.
Flight deck captain speaking.
Hi, Captain. The cabin is now secure for landing.
Thank you. Yeah, we went into VS mode and I never noticed it, and that's kind of a bad thing on my part. I was trying to do way too much stuff all at once. But again, it really is, should probably have LS on as well. It really is incumbent on me to notice these things, especially as the PF, but I'm also the PF, but I'm also the PM too. I'm also monitoring myself.
JetBlue 1434, turn right heading 270.
Right turn 270, JetBlue 1434. And Orlando from JetBlue 1434. I know you've got some departures off 35 left. Is it going to be possible for us to stop on the runway for about 2 minutes before we taxi off?
JetBlue 1434, let's see. I'll try to get Air Canada before you arrive.
Okay, we don't want to cause any problems, so if it is a problem, just let us know.
Okay, I'll let you know.
Thank you. Okay. There we go. So communicated with ATC. He sounds like he was kind of working hard with these guys, so I didn't want to like overwhelm him with extra stuff. It's the important thing is it has to be collaborative.
Number 3 Whiskey Bravo, please ident.
It's important for it to have a collaborative relationship between you and ATC. All right, so there's our descent at 3,000. So that's looking pretty good, even without the speed brakes. He's done a pretty nice job of getting us kind of far enough out that we're And look to the south, like it does look clear. This is the thunderstorm. It doesn't look nearly as intense on in MSFS as it does in the real world. This looks pretty intense here.
Altitude's 1500.
I wouldn't want to land through this. I would be holding and waiting for this, but that's definitely not what I'm seeing here on in the sim world here.
Northeast of Orlando VOR, clear direct Worms, climb maintain 16,000.
Well, thank goodness we did have a controller to kind of help us through this, because this is actually working out really kind of nicely. This is the first time I've had a controller for quite a few legs now, I think. Good times. Good times. And it's nice over here. Like, if the airport was here, like, we just got here a few minutes too late to beat the storm in, but so be it. Normally I wouldn't be asking permission to stop on the run. I'd be telling them what we want. But obviously, you know, again, it's a collaborative relationship. You want to do what you can, but at the same time, like, I realize, like, there's a limitation to what the VATSIM controllers can deal with all at one time, and that is, you know, I'm trying to work with them and see what I can get, and if not, we'll stop off the runway. We'll pretend that we stopped on the runway. Again, I don't want to screw over all these other pilots because he's got all the other departures. I didn't have a chance to tell him ahead of time what we were planning. Okay, that's 3,700 descending 3,000. We're going to bring the speed back now to 220. Yeah, I would have passed that information along sooner, but because of the thunderstorm too, that actually, and that probably should have entered into my decision making. Do I want to be making a landing underneath a thunderstorm with no reversers, you know, onto potentially wet runway? I've done the number calculations. With a wet runway, it's fine. If you take it down to medium pour, which is a standing water runway, all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore. That's with a 5-knot tailwind. If I clear out the tailwind, or if I apply the correct Mentor here, even that just barely with the 13-knot headwind, that's okay. But with standing water, that could get pretty bad pretty fast. There's speed alt star. Yeah, honestly, the weather didn't enter into it. That should have been a bit more of a thought in my head. We should have turned tail and run for Miami and dealt with it there. Speed breaks.
JetBlue 1434, turn right, heading 3330, 5 miles from CTAM, maintain 3,000 and establish on localizer, clear left, runway 35 left approach.
Heading 330 for the intercept, check the position, clear for the ILS 35 left, JetBlue 1434. Clear for the approach.
Air Canada 342, are now J-Wolf, wind 320,
Cat 3 single, excuse me, autopilot 1 and 2, Lokestar, glide slope blue. Flaps 1, speed check, flaps 1, I do have the IDDO tuned there. Status, no change in status, remove status. Remove status. Yeah, it definitely looks not great under here. Start bringing the speed back a little more here, 190, so we're ready for flaps 2 when we catch the glide slope there, because otherwise we may not get it. And I see the glide slope coming pretty quick, so hopefully we can get through this. Why is ignition on? Why is ignition on? That's interesting. I don't have the anti-ice on. There's
American
Loke.
1363 looking for higher.
I wonder if it has anything to do with the FCTC failure, or...
American 1363, contact Jacksonville
It's weird that
Center
ignition is on,
133.3.
but it could be this combination of failures that's doing it.
33
Now we're into the rain. Glide slope star, missed approach altitude of 3,000 feet set, flaps 2, speed.
Good night.
Oh, see ya. He's supposed to do it.
Number 3 Whiskey Bravo, contact Jacksonville Center 133.3.
Flaps 2.
Going to 133.3, 92 Whiskey Bravo, see you.
Glide slope.
Check it.
Gear down, landing checks. Gear down.
Gear down.
What's funny is that, like, I was doing the flaps and everything by myself because I'm used to doing it all by myself.
Cabin crew be seated for landing. Radar altimeter alive.
JetBlue 1434, wind 320 gusting 34, runway 17 left, clear to land, and you can stay there for a couple of minutes.
Okay, JetBlue 1434, cleared to land, 35 left, copy stopping on the runways approved. Let me know when we do get in the way, thank you. Alright.
Air Canada 342 Heavy, please say altitude.
Passing 600, Air Canada 342 Heavy.
Air Canada 342 Heavy, on radar contact.
Flaps 3.
Speed checked. Flaps 3.
Not a nice day out here. Flaps full.
Speed checked. Flaps full.
Landing checklist.
ECAM memo.
Landing no blue.
Landing checklist complete.
Hopefully we don't have to do a go around here. It's not great. It's definitely murky. It's definitely unpleasant under here. There's a tailwind component on final here. And a quartering tailwind. That'll help carry us down the runway. As long as the runway's not overly contaminated, it should be okay.
1000.
But this may not be a good idea. This may be one of those cases where it might be good to wait 30 minutes and do the approach after 30 minutes.
Pitch.
I would definitely consider that. You can see it, but it's, yeah, look at the winds here. They're all over the place. We've got quartering tailwind right now. It's not going to be pretty, but...
Sync rate.
Correcting. Stable. Gonna fly right down to minimums on the autopilot. Let the autopilot do the work. Land.
100 above.
Roger.
Minimums.
Continue.
Checked.
Cat 1.
Checked.
50, 40, 30, 10, 5.
She always gets that sync.
Spoilers. No reverse engine 1 and engine 2. Diesel.
Manual brakes. She always gets that sync on final.
70 knots.
Park and brake is set. Alright. Radar is off. And lights are all off. We communicate with the fire truck vehicles on the frequency. They'd have a look at the aircraft. They'd confirm that whether anything's coming out. If nothing is leaking out, no evidence of fire. Of course, our brakes are going to be really warm. Let's check them out here. Wheels. Haven't even started going up yet, but they are going to get really warm in the next 2 minutes here. And I think that's okay. I think we're good to taxi to the gate. And hydraulic yellow system, low pressure, brake yellow accumulator monitor. And see, we've already used up a little bit of that yellow brake accumulator. So clear hydraulics, status. No change in status for the taxi in. We know about the brakes. Remove status. And Orlando approach. Thank you very much, Air Canada's correction. JetBlue 1434. We're ready to vacate and taxi to airside 1, gate 9.
JetBlue 1434, roger that. Okay, taxi to the gates via okay, Foxtrot, Bravo, and Bravo 4.
Foxtrot, Bravo, Bravo 4 to the gate for JetBlue 1434. Thank you very much for all your help. We appreciate it.
Air Canada 342, contact Jackson Center 133.3.
Okay, so this is Foxtrot right here.
Thanks.
Foxtrot. And then Bravo's the outer one when we get to the other side. Bravo 4 entry to the air side. Alright, so this is Foxtrot right here. Yep, it's a long straight one. Well, there was a little bit of a bounce on that one. Not the best day to be doing an approach. We did stop in like half the runway. Those brake temperatures are coming up pretty fast. Takes a minute or so for the temperature to spread to through the brake stack to where the sensors are. But we did manage to do that successfully. It was not not the best landing I ever did, but considering it was underneath a thunderstorm with no reversers, yeah. And this is something that I think would have entered the decision making. I think with that gusty wind, it would have been prudent to consider delaying the approach, considering the level of failures available to the aircraft. The fuel we had on board too, we had 30 to 40 minutes of holding fuel. We probably could have held and waited for the weather to clear out. So these are things you kind of, and this is part of what makes the sim so interesting, is you can think about these things in real time in the sim, but then you can also replay these scenarios that you will never do in real life, but you can replay them to yourself. You can say, did you make the right decision? Well, I do have some regrets. I think maybe delaying the approach once we heard that there was bad weather in the area, I think would have been a very prudent step to think about. And I think we can probably do after landing stuff, I guess. After landing checklist.
Radar and predictive wind shear system.
Off.
After landing checklist completed.
Taxiway is a wee bit wonky here, isn't it? But hopefully at least the bridge works. Yeah, that's one of the fun things about doing the simming is you can simulate all sorts of disaster scenarios, and you can make the wrong choices, and you can do it in a relatively consequence-free environment and learn from those choices. And have I just learned from this choice? Yeah, I begin to wonder too if our dispatcher wouldn't have also talked about this and said, hey, look, the weather in Orlando is about to just, is about to turn real bad real fast. We're going to suggest you divert to Fort Lauderdale, and we'll continue the flight from Fort Lauderdale with a different aircraft, or something like that. And that's the kind of thing you might have collaboratively working with a dispatcher. That should be flaps up. You're not doing any of this after landing stuff. Even just to hold for 20 or 30 minutes and wait for the winds to calm down, because those winds were pretty substantial. It's funny because it didn't look that bad topside as far as MSFS was concerned. It didn't look like it was nearly as bad as the real world. That would look like a pretty nasty little line of thunderstorms. MSFS is kind of like, here's some cumulus clouds. But definitely the winds underneath here were very unpleasant. So we had like a tailwind coming down final. It was hard to get stabilized too. So yeah, there's brakes hot. No surprise there, since we used all of our power to stop the aircraft, or all of the brakes to stop the aircraft. The right side's a little hotter than the left, so we'll favor the left brake a little bit for the taxi in. Yeah, it's not an easy thing. All right, ECAM actions. Well, we're just on the straightaway here. Brakes hot, delayed takeoff for cool. Well, we're not taking off anywhere with this failure, so clear brakes. Clear brakes. And status, stop ECAM. We're going to turn right on Bravo here, so just stay with me until we turn right on Bravo, then we'll continue the ECAM. So it should be the second right turn here. This should be Charlie, and then it should be Bravo to get to Bravo 4. And sometimes when you're in the sim, you play the game a little bit. Like I said, I tried to kind of work with the controller. I had in my mind what I wanted to do, but I realized departure control was kind of doing a lot of stuff. He sounded like he was a bit overwhelmed at moments there with the runway change. People saying they could do a takeoff with a 20-knot tailwind. Well, there's not a lot of airplanes that are certified to do a takeoff with a 20-knot tailwind. Most airliners, the tailwind limit is usually 10 knots. Anything over 10 knots, we got to change runways. There are some that can get certified up to 15 or 20, and some operators pay extra for that, but the vast majority do not. So the second you get above 10-knot tailwind, you're changing runways, because most people are not going to take it. And even if you could do it, doesn't mean you should. All right, on Bravo now to Bravo 4. Continue ECAM. So status, no change in the status that I can really see there. Remove status. Remove status. The ECAM actions are complete. Brakes are hot. Not unreasonably hot. They're definitely not even approaching limits yet. They are hot as you would expect them to be. All right, so we're looking for Bravo 4. I believe this is still airside 3 here. Yeah, this is airside 3. This should be Bravo 7 taxiway. It's also not great visibility, so we have to kind of go a little bit slower to make sure we see where we're going here. Hayden UK, we're still here. We just got here. We landed successfully underneath what looks like kind of a bad thunderstorm here in Orlando, so it made for an interesting landing for sure. We'll have to back that up and watch the landing. It was not the best landing I've ever done, I'll be honest. It was a little bit rough.
Orlando departure.
And I find it's very hard to land this sim.
Pushback.
The real airplane is easier to land than this sim, and maybe it's because you don't have the force feedback. Not the force feedback, but the sensory feedback. You don't feel the aircraft changing attitudes, but I find the real airplane is easier to land than the Fenix. Alright, so this, I believe is, I'm not even sure what taxiway this is here. Bravo 5, I think it said. Bravo 6, yeah. Alright, so Bravo 5 will be the next right here, and then Bravo 4
with information
should be this one right here.
Say 24.
Did you start the APU yet? Did you do anything? You're the most useless first officer. It was definitely interesting, though. There was a lot of the failures had a lot of interesting implications, and I really should have considered a diversion to Fort Lauderdale in hindsight. And this is something that, like, I can look back and say honestly, I may have made an error in judgment. And you do the best you can. I didn't consider the weather in Orlando closely enough. Looked at the weather, looked at the minimums. I said it's still sunny there, but I didn't look at the weather radar to see the fact that some bad weather was coming our way pretty quickly. So should we have landed here with a hydraulic system failure? I mean, we landed on the runway. We stopped before Foxtrot.
Follow across on the frequency, approach will step away for a minute.
So we did use roughly half of that 10,000 foot runway on 3.5 left. So it wasn't terrible. It was not terrible. But it was not, again, decision making is a skill like any other to a certain degree. It can be learned, it can be practiced, and you get better at it with practice. And I'm ready to admit that I probably made an error in judgment in coming here and landing underneath that storm. It didn't look as bad in the flight sim as it did on the radar, so I kind of dismissed it as, flight sim doesn't think it's actually a thunderstorm, it's not that bad, but the winds were all over the place on final. I was seriously contemplating a go-around. I didn't do it. We continued. Again, maybe that continuation bias, I didn't do it, but I was thinking about it for a while. I was thinking about it on final. I was like, should we do a go-around? Should we ask to hold for 20 minutes and wait for the storm to pass before we land here? Or maybe we should have diverted to Fort Lauderdale. Those were all considerations. We passed right over Fort Lauderdale. We could have dropped in there and come back. Oh, good. Our jet bridge is not connected to the terminal. Microsoft. Alright, so this I believe is gate 8 on the corner, and because I see marshals over there for gate 9. So, okay, so taxi lights, we had them off for this whole taxi in anyways, because I turned them off for the fire trucks. The APU's available, the weather radar is off. Accumulator, it's okay. We don't have a whole lot of pressure left in the accumulator, but we should have enough to set the parking brake once. The strobes are still on though. Taxiing around with the strobes on, but the taxi light off. APU bleed is available, the anti-ice is off. And I'm trying to sort of do multiple things at once. I've been doing a bit of gardening, keeping out of mischief. Well, outside of my house right now, it looks kind of like this. It's gray and dreary, and it's definitely, this is a good day to be indoors, doing indoorsy stuff. I was thinking about opening the pool today, and then I saw it was going to rain for a good portion of the day. I said, nah, we probably won't do that today. Our marshaller must be inside those stairs. Darn it. And I'm trying to get better about looking at these gates ahead of time and trying to move people around, move the GSX stuff around. So your guess is as good as mine as to where to stop. I'm just going to stop for a second, look here. We'll probably get a little bit closer. Close enough, somewhere around there is probably good. Alright. We do have pressure in the parking brake there. The accumulator went a little lower, but it's still good. Remember to submit your flight. So that was an interesting little adventure of a flight, actually. It was honestly quite interesting, and yeah, sometimes you make the wrong decision. You learn from those moments, and I think I may have made the wrong decision to land here in Orlando, but so be it. Alright, we're going to go ahead and take the beacon off. They're going to start deboarding here in a second. There goes all the doors, so we can go ahead and shut this airplane down. So we're going to get the yellow pumps off. We're going to leave the PTU and the engine 2 pump in the off position. External power is already available. These guys are on it. I've never seen an airline work that fast. Get external power in an airplane. Alright, seatbelts are off. Deselect all this stuff, and that's it. So we are here. We made it. We dealt with that failure. As I said, I do regret it a little bit, and if I had to go back and do it again, I would look more seriously at diverting. I didn't realize the weather had deteriorated so quickly in Orlando. We had the fuel to divert even as we were kind of starting up for the approach, so I was kind of hoping it would almost pass through before we landed. It obviously did not. It's something you have to take a little bit, not for granted, but a little bit, play the game a little bit with the sim, because the sim weather is not always totally up to what the real world METARs are saying. It's usually a little bit lagged and delayed. So temperatures are very reasonable considering we didn't have any reversers on for that one. So wheel status, we know about all the failures. IRS's drifts are under 5 miles, it's good. And let's see, we burned 7,500, we've got 4,000, which adds up to about 4,100, which adds up to about 11.5. So that's very reasonable. Transponder off. Shutdown checklist. Parking checklist. Parking checklist.
Parking brake or chocks.
Set.
Engines.
Off.
Wing lights.
Off.
Fuel pumps.
Off.
Parking checklist completed.
Thank you. Now we have yellow electric pump, brakes hot, flight control FCDC for 1 fault. We're going to call maintenance and let them deal with that now. That is now no longer my problem. The airplane's at the gate, passengers are getting off, and this seems like a you problem, buddy. This seems like a company maintenance problem. I am going to go to the hotel. Let's see here. Okay, so let's get ground services going here. Toggle jetway. At least that comes
controls.
The jetway to nowhere. Disregard. Cancel checklist. Cancel checklist.
Roger.
There we go. Mute him properly. And all right. Anyways, we're here, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in for that. That was definitely interesting. Definitely an interesting collection of failures there. Fantastic. Jet bridge to nowhere. Yeah, definitely an interesting collection of failures. I'm very, very happy that we got that done, though. And even, you know, seemingly benign failures without a whole lot.
Departure, Delta 824, ready taxi with information, Romeo.
Delta 824 on departure, hello again, runway 35 left, taxi via Golf Hotel 10.
35 left via...
And even seemingly benign failures can have implications. It's not just about what the ECAM tells you, but about reading between the lines. What are the additional implications? You know, like parking brake, you're going to only have a limited number of applications. You've got to think about that, but then that becomes an additional threat if you're not setting the parking brake every time the aircraft stops. In this case, we didn't have to cross any runways. We didn't have to stop, so it was okay. But, you know, if you had a runway crossing you wanted to hold short of, most of the time you set the parking brake for that because you don't want the airplane to roll when you're not thinking about it. And that's one of the big habits they teach you when you start to get in these larger airplanes is just set the parking brake. Just set the parking brake. It doesn't cost you anything. And most of the time it doesn't. But then when the, you know, when you've lost that system and you only have the accumulator go on, guess what? Now the parking brake does cost you something. So you have to think about that. Most of the time they don't want us to, they want us to use the parking brake no matter when we stop, just because you don't roll accidentally. It happens to people from time to time. You have just enough pressure to stop the airplane, and then you turn and you relax your pressure just a little bit or something. Your eyes are distracted. You look down for a moment to look at the ATIS or something, and you look up and the airplane's rolling forward. So set the parking brake. That the airplane's not going to move. So you know you change that part of the equation. You increase the risk factor. If something's non-standard, you increase the risk factor. So, anyways, nevertheless, that was an interesting failure that made for an interesting flight, an interesting arrival. I'm so happy we had ATC for that arrival to help us out, and with the runway change, with the level of traffic, because there was a fair bit of traffic, making sure we weren't going to be jerks to anybody else. So we got everybody else launched before he turned us on to final, which was great, and we were able to do the stop on the runway. Everything that was nice. That was really nice. I really liked that. I hope that I hope that we get to do we get some similar failures like that. So the next leg's not so bad. The next leg's like a 2 and a bit hour flight from Orlando up to Washington. So maybe we can even squeeze that in an evening next week, and we might even be able to get some ATC for that. I'm kind of hopeful. It would be nice to get some ATC, some end-to-end especially, but even just throughout at some point. But yeah, other than that, that was actually pretty good. That was quite fun. That was a little bit of a relief after last time when, you know, like I said, the internet failed halfway through my stream and 3/4 of the way through my stream. It really kind of disappointed me. I'm glad that we were able to handle that failure right to the bottom. The last minute runway change, what a mental cluster that was too. And it's funny because, like, yeah, you get in cruise and yeah, you pilots don't do much. You just sit there and you just sort of watch the airplane. It's like, yeah, but then when something changes, oh boy, that's a lot of workload. That was a lot of workload to change that arrival up, to rebrief the approach, consider the fact that we had those failures against the approach. At least if I had a second person there, it would have been a little bit easier. Obviously, if flying by myself, I'm doing everything. I'm making new runway, you know, landing distance calculations, reprogramming, still flying, trying to keep everything going. It's a lot of work for one person to do. So I often say that, like, pilots often earn their year's salary in 1 or 2 flights. You usually have 1 or 2 flights a year where you earn most of your salary. At least 1 flight a month where you earn your entire month's salary in 1 flight, and the rest of the month is you're not doing much because stuff doesn't often go too wrong. And someone made it's funny, the guy I was flying with, he made a comment. He was dealing with one of those kind of days. And there was the first officer he was working with that he was a couple of years into the company and couldn't deal with all this stuff that was going wrong that day. It was nothing terribly. It was nothing like failures. It was just simply a ground delay. So they'd want to do single engine taxi. Guy hadn't done single engine taxi in forever. No single engine taxi. Programming a hold. They gave him a hold because even when they got airborne, it was still too soon, and they got a hold when they were airborne. The guy's like struggling to find to program the hold, and just struggling to do all this kind of basic stuff. And the captain asked him, like, what's going on? Like, you don't seem like you're up on all these procedures. Like, oh, well, we never use this stuff. And it's like, most of us do. Like, this guy, he must have just been born with a horseshoe around his neck, because it seemed like, you know, in the last, like, 2 years he worked at this company, nothing had really ever gone wrong. Everything gone according to plan, straight from point A to point B, gate to gate, no delays, no waiting around, no single engine taxi, no holes, no nothing. And it's like, this stuff happens. You got to be ready for it. And yeah, a lot of the time it doesn't happen. 90% to 95% of the flights, it doesn't happen. But then when those 5% of the flights where stuff does happen, things go wrong, the weather turns bad, you got to hold, you got to divert, you got to do all this stuff, you got to be ready for it. And that's where, like I said, the pilots probably earn their money on just a handful of flights every month, if not 1 or 2 flights every month. Most of the rest are usually pretty uneventful. Things go pretty well. You pre-plan everything, and everything works out according to plan. But then those couple of things where stuff changes at the last minute, all of a sudden you're happy to have some experienced people on the flight deck who can respond to that quickly, but safely and effectively. And yeah, a lot of the time, there's not much of the job. But just once in a while, you get a flight like this where, boy, a lot of stuff happened really quickly, and it took a lot of effort on my part to get it done. And we got it done. But boy, it was definitely not easy. Anyways, I hope that was fun. I hope that was educational. I hope you enjoyed that. Looks like the weather in MCO might have already cleared out here at 17:37. It was already 350 at 10 miles, few at 2300, scattered 49. So MSFS is not even caught up here. I can see some kind of lighter stuff in the distance there, but it hasn't even caught up to this. Still kind of dreary here in MSFS, but that's fine. Anyways, I'm going to call it a day there, guys. I hope you had fun. I hope to see you again on the next stream. I'll definitely be doing some ATC in the evenings this week. I don't know when, maybe even in the mornings a couple times. We'll see how the weather is. When the weather's kind of bleh outside, then I'll be in here controlling and or flying. So in the meantime, guys, stay safe out there on the VATSIM skies. Do your best to fly everything as by the book as possible. Know your airplane, know your numbers and your procedures, and have fun out there. And we will see you guys out there real soon on the VATSIM skies. Take care.